All right, welcome out everyone, all of you amazing decoders, chronologists, historians, cryptocurrency fans, fans of life. My name is Logan, Decode Your Reality, and this is Decoding the Waters Above Archaix Part 2. I am joined by two fine gentlemen, two of the best minds in the world today. I have Jason from Archaix and Jordan from Waters Above. Gentlemen, welcome out to this podcast. How's everybody going?
I'm really upset there's no drum roll. That was an awesome intro.
Okay. Awesome.
It was incredibly epic.
Epic, yeah. Well, you guys didn't hear the music and all that. I tried to make it fun, et cetera, et cetera. So, ladies and gentlemen, some of you may be like, oh, you guys aren't showing your video feed this time. No, well, we're just going to try to have you focus on our voices. And I put together a long graphic list starting now. These are some AI-generated graphics. These are going to be moving throughout this podcast, and try to get yourself focused on the voices here. Our voices, what we're going to talk about. I'm going to be reviewing the comments. So if you have some questions, we can't get to them all, but we're going to review some of these comments, questions, and we'll start to really hone in on what's on your mind. And these photographs, these images, maybe will provoke you with some questions on what it is that you feel we should be talking about. But let's just kind of start off with what's going on in your life. Jason, start with you, my friend. What's going on with you? And is there anything specific that you want to talk about during this broadcast?
You know what? I'm an open book tonight. Today I took off. I'm preparing a manuscript for my publisher. The first 3,000 years of the Archaix history before the flood. My publisher's excited about it. It's pretty much monopolizing all my time. But as far as subject matter, hey, you know what? Anytime Jordan and I get together, it just goes in different directions. It's a good vibe. And you and I, we get along like peas and carrots.
That's
so
right.
I don't see this going bad. I'm open to anything. We can talk about non-Archaix topics. We can talk about Archaix. It doesn't really matter. I'm pretty much an open book tonight. And all you got to do is trigger me. You already know I'm the king of tangents.
I think we all sit in that chair. That's for sure. So awesome. Congratulations on the books, man. I didn't know you had so many. When I showed up in San Diego, I was like, damn, dude, you've been writing. And I mean, props to you on that. That takes a lot of dedication and discipline to pump out a book. That's for damn sure. So I was really impressed with your display of books out there in San Diego. Thanks everybody for coming out to the Errant event in San Diego, Adams Theater. That was pretty epic. It was amazing. It was nice to be around people for once instead of just talking to a damn video screen. But anyway, Jordan, what's going on with you, brother? Welcome out.
Yeah, I'm really grateful to reconnect with all of y'all. I think it's going to be an amazing day. I don't even know where to get started with this. I know we talked a lot in our last time getting together. I don't even remember how many months ago that was. Perhaps 6 or 7, maybe even more. Maybe jog my memory on that. When did we all get together last?
It's been a while. Jason, do you remember? Yeah. I don't remember.
I'm sorry, but I don't think in terms of linear time. I think in terms of it's been 61 videos ago.
Oh, wow. You know how many you have in between?
That's a good tracking system.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Cool. So
pictures are epic.
Yeah, they're cool, right?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, man. So I just pumped in, it's all in the keywords when you generate these images, and I tried to get it correlated to, and that was Jason. This was your Decoding the Waters Above Archaix. That was kind of your idea, and I just kind of, you kind of just sit there with your imagination, like, okay, what would that look like? With these generated graphics, and so this, you put your descriptions. It's all in the keywords, but hopefully it'll provoke something in some of you out there that are watching this, that you can ask some questions, whatever. But Jordan, go ahead, brother. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. I've been quite busy on a lot of different projects. I have this new decoding mastermind course that I'm releasing. I probably talked about it the last time we got together, so hoping to get that done by next month. And it's going to actually focus more on symbolism and etymology and mythology. It's not really going to go down that path of gematria, which most people expect. It's kind of designed to be the blueprint or the starting or foundation for everyone, and kind of revisiting where I got started. And I believe it'll expedite the process for a lot of decoders out there, save people a lot of time, because we're going to look at things from a whole new direction and have it be a more intuitive process rather than this systematic kind of going back into what the new age teaches, etc. So I'm really excited. It's been really nice to just take big blocks of time here and there and focus solely on that, and not look at the charts and crypto and all that jazz. So yeah, I've just been doing that, and also creating a lot of music lately. So besides that, I don't even I've just been in my own little bubble, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, what else is new? You're always in your own little bubble, but it's all good. It's all good. I thought what would be cool, since we're all fans of kind of life. Big shout out just to life itself. Hopefully, you and the audience listening right now. Thanks everybody for coming in, supporting all of our researchers. It's great to do this collaboration. This is truly kind of a marvelous thing to undertake and be a part of. And I thought maybe, since we're fans of life, like what's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen the next day? And, it really is about the now moment. But, Jason, what I love about your work so much is the time slots in between. Like, of course, the Phoenix event is really what you brought into the limelight in a big way. And I know you've got it pegged to 2041, around that time frame. And that would go back to, 1802 was the last Phoenix event?
It would have been 1902.
Oh, 1902, excuse me, 1902, yeah. So, like that's around the World's Fair time, isn't it?
Well, there's a lot of amazing infrastructure changes that all happened in that year, but it's a lot deeper than that. The changes go even to passages in books that had remained unchanged for centuries. In 1902, suddenly new translations came out that were saying other things, and that's what I document. I document a lot of these edits. It's not always a cataclysm. It's not always a human depopulation, but every 138 years, you can guarantee something very unusual is happening, and it's always covered up. It's always masked and hidden by natural disasters, earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, sun darkening. It's almost a type of very intelligent misdirection. That's what I've documented.
Yeah, and I know you've got it pegged. Do you see anything? Because I know you and I sat down in San Diego. We went over some of these number patterns that you were generously giving me, which I'm still diving into. Do you see anything on the horizon between now and 2040 that could possibly happen? I'd love to get your take, and then Jordan, I'd love to get your take on it. I mean, 2026 coming up. When you bring that into alchemy, that's 226, which is radium, which is Ra, which is tied to the Egyptian sun god. And that year in the Chinese zodiac is the year of the horse, but it's not just any horse, it's the fire horse, tied to Libra, which is the fall time. Do you see anything, Jason, in between now and 2040 with your mathematical equations?
Well, just like since 1902, it's been 121 years. A whole lot has happened. World War I, World War II, almost 35% of the entire world's population from 1916 all the way to 1947 has been wiped out. And yet the rest of us continue. Cities are built, infrastructure is worked on. There's improvements in our education system. There's improvements everywhere. We're seeing more skyscrapers. Cities are growing out big. We're still blowing up in population. So these resets every 138 years aren't resets to necessarily depopulate the world. They're to do something else. They're almost like guiding the narrative. And the narrative is something that I have gone, like in my past presentations, I've been showing people multitudes of videos concerning one single year. Then I single out a different year and do some videos on that year to show them all the changes that have happened. And what I'm seeing is a stage play. It's almost as if a script was written. It's all programming. We're literally moving through a bunch of phenomena, and sometimes by fear we become a participant, and we get trapped and ensnared in that phenomena, and then it becomes a part of our reality tunnel, and then we're in that paradigm and we can't break free of it. Others others live their lives without ever being affected, because everything to them in reality is objective. Unless they're actually experiencing something, they don't borrow into it. So they don't lend it, they don't lend any of their spiritual power to the construct in order for the construct to reflect it back as a physical reality for that individual. That's where I'm at. I know the world's an effed up place. I did a terrible video today. I kind of regret uploading it, but I uploaded a video to Archaix TV today because I cannot release this type of content on YouTube. But I did it today, and it was nothing but a pure rant as I was driving my Jeep today, and I was just ranting about basically what's going on in Palestine and Facebook. How Facebook it shocks me when the posts that I've been seeing on Facebook asking the public, do you think Israel has a right to defend itself? As if that's the issue. And yet I'm seeing all the footage on the side of children getting gunned down, blown apart, and seeing this mass genocide taking place. And it's not Israel defending themselves. That's not what's happening. I'm not going to get political in this video, but I borrowed into that. I let emotion get the best of me, and I released an emotional rant on the Archaix TV, something I would never do on YouTube. But this is what it is. Once we emotionally become invested in something, we become a participant. And then once we become a participant, the construct itself begins to bring that phenomena to us. So I'm telling you all this because the script that is unfolding to me is one that's unfolded many times. I see a huge war developing, and I see that the Christian world has basically been suckered in the last 17 centuries into believing that a certain people are specially chosen by God for rights, privileges, and immunities that even Christians don't enjoy. And many Christians are cool with that. And I see this rising Christian conservative right emerging in America. I'm seeing signs of it everywhere. And they're about to take over. And when they do, I'm telling you, there's a lot of people that are not going to like how this goes. The pendulum is about to swing the other way. And you're going to realize real quick that under the liberals and the Democrats, you had a lot of freedoms that under the Christian Reich, you're not going to have it anymore. Yeah. I see that coming fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Jordan, what's your take on between now and perhaps the big Phoenix event Jason talks about in 2040, 2041? What do you see? What do you got pegged with all your research?
Yeah, so it's a lot of things. You know, I'm particularly looking into the markets and trying to really decipher what's happening there. But from the world stage perspective, I've come to a couple of big connections and patterns that I've realized. And one of them is as simple as just utilizing the Chinese zodiac. Before you talked about the year of the horse, and I found a pattern that's very specific to the United States of America with the year of the snake. So this following year of the snake is coming very soon, actually, in 2025. And the pattern has to do with, if you look at all the wars that even Jason started naming, well, the United States, they began to have involvement in those conflicts during the year of the snake. And that's very important. So we have World War I. We see that the time frame of that the United States got involved was during the year of the snake. In World War II, it was 1941. That was during the year of the snake. We have the Great Depression started in the year of the snake. We also have Vietnam. United States' involvement was during the year of the snake. The war in Afghanistan in 2001, that was during the year of the snake. I mean, you could just keep going. There's a definite pattern tied to the United States of America with war or just overall conflict and that particular Chinese zodiac sign. So because we just had this war in Israel kick off during the year of the rabbit, and we had World War II start during the year of the rabbit, it's making me feel that we're going to have a cycle of 3 years. Everything happens in threes. And because we just moved through a Jubilee year, and I believe now anyone who follows my work or has listened to our past podcasts can confirm that that was a Jubilee year from September 2022 to September 2023, because the moment it ended, well, the global elite celebrated with starting a new war right there in October, just less than pretty much a month after. So we are now moving into what could be a more war-driven kind of environment. And I believe the next domino that's involved in this will be probably China, and the United States will become involved during the year of the snake. Now, there'll probably be a lot that builds and pents up moving into next year because it's an election year, and I don't want to get political. I know that's kind of unimportant for what we're about to get into today, but needless to say, they're going to leverage on that conversation of the presidency. Everyone knows that the United States president always becomes the talk of the town for pretty much 6 months before to 6 months after on a global scale, not just in the States, but pretty much everywhere you go. So, yeah, this is a really interesting time. And I think that there's probably going to be two big rituals that happen next year specifically. One of them is going to be on April 15th of 2024. And then the following ritual will probably be during the Paris Olympics, during the Summer Olympics. And what's going to happen in April, trigger what happened. And then it will release this sort of energy, this post-eclipse energy, because we have a solar eclipse on April 8th of 2024. It's going to sort of release that energy into the summertime. And it's probably going to be a very weird May, June, July timeframe. So that's a specific time frame that I think will have things go down very rapidly, and it'll get intense, and regular people will just be led to the slaughter as usual. They're going to be caught up in a distraction campaign, and all of us here, we're used to this by now. I have a saying that I share often, which is protect your prana, just preserve your life force energy, because everything that's going to be happening over the next, year to 2 years is going to just be about distracting you and getting you off your path.
Yeah, good stuff, man. Good, solid stuff. Both of you, good, solid stuff.
Logan,
go ahead, Jason.
Raising and waving my hand. You can't see me because he got my camera off. So I had to interrupt because this man just triggered something I got to say.
Yes, please do.
Jordan, I'm always telling my own community, if something is true, it will always be able to be verified using different mathematical vantage points. I'm always hammering this into my community and showing them different ways that we can date the exact same event using different sources and methods. What you just said about the United States entering into a war is exactly what is shown in the palindromic nature of isometric projections. Using 1998, the year of Edgar Cayce and Nostradamus, where they said time-space acted like a pool of water, ripples going forward and backward in time, I have shown many examples of 1998 being the isometric epicenter, showing so many palindromes going forward and backward. In 2023 is the isometric reflection of 1973, when the United States just pulled out of an 8-year war in Vietnam. Isometrically, this means we're going in the opposite direction now, meaning toward the end of 2023 and in 2024, the United States will now get involved in another 8-year war. Further, you mentioned the year 2024. And in my own SEALs decodes, I'm showing that the elite are operating by the Greek Olympiad calendar, which is based off multiples of 4. And I'm showing that these events on these ceremonies that are done very specifically, these rituals that are showing glimpses of future phenomena in these Olympic rituals they have a purpose. And 2024 is very interesting because it is attached to another isometric projection that is connected to the terrible terrorist attack. The only time in history during the Olympics that terrorists got inside and machine gunned a bunch of athletes. In this case, it was Palestinians machine gunning Israeli athletes. This is all lines up with French Olympics. It's amazing how all this lines up. It goes even deeper than that when you take into consideration the Olympics were reinitiated in 1896, and they started the 4-year count all the way up till today. It's amazing because what you just said was confirmed in two other different ways concerning 1973, concerning the Palestinians, and concerning the United States pulling out of a war in 1973. So these are going to be reversed. Now we're going to have Israelis gunning down Palestinians, and we're going to have the United States initiating an 8-year war, not pulling out of one.
Shit, what do I say? What do I say about this? You guys just hammered it all down. How about the fact that
Well, he's bringing up so many good points.
Oh.
And like I'm in my process of gathering this data and to make it be delivered without fear. You know, because that's really the tough part, and I'm sure you both deal with this quite often. It's like, how do you share your truths and this vision you have and make sure that you're speaking it in a way where people not only resonate with it and they could feel where you're at with it, but then they also don't get overly concerned by it, you know? Because at the end of the day, like, you should follow your own intuition, your own truth. And I'm speaking to the audience right now. So yeah, sometimes it's tough for me because I'm so locked into this code, but I'm also not emotional about it. And I'm aware that I have a platform. So when I share this information, like what I've shared about this eclipse and everything that we just went into, I had 50, 60, 70 emails and messages of people right after it that were worried. They're like, what do I do?
Yeah.
You know, so sometimes it's rough to talk about some of these things when you have one of these larger audiences, although I am very grateful and it's a beautiful opportunity we all have to have this platform. But yeah, it's difficult because everything that Archaix, you know, everything that Jason just said, and I'm sure Logan, you're going to be able to uncover so much with this as well, because me and you have both talked about this Paris Olympics logo. Yeah. And from a decoding perspective, how much symbolism is right there in front of our faces. So, you know, I mean, we could go down this rabbit hole even further if you guys would like, because it is sort of in our near future. But maybe if you guys know anything in the next couple months, like leading into the end of this year, maybe that's something we could talk about, and then we can move into what we think Q1 and Q2 will be like in the following year.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah, I know you guys are both. This is going to lead into something bigger. This obviously is going to lead into part 3. I already know that's going to happen. These are going to be ongoing for sure. You know, we got enough people that have been wanting this content, so that's awesome. You know, I wanted to kind of individually, I want to ask each one of you, and I'm just going to give you a layer of imagination to consider here. I'm going to use astrology kind of as a base, and the ages of astrology as a base to perhaps to give you an idea of maybe what would push you towards whatever you're going to tell me as the description of what you think it's going to be. But let's just assume astrologically that we are now moving into, or already have moved into, the age of Aquarius. And if you take the yugas in the Vedic system, a lot of these yogis that I follow, they talk about us being out of the Kali Yuga, which is the death stage, so to speak, and moving into the first stage of the Kali. I'm sorry, it's moving into the stage of Dwarpa, and which is the electrical age. And this kind of fits the bill with Aquarius. So you have the Vedic, you have these Hindu yogis and stuff talking about moving out of the dark age, the Kali Yuga, and moving into the electrical age, which may have already, some of these people say that it happened when electricity was created. Edison and Tesla fighting it out, alternating and direct current and all this, and the invention of the light bulb and all that. We already moved into the electrical age way back in the day. But nonetheless, with that in mind, with the age of Aquarius and perhaps the Dwarpa Yuga going back to source, because now it seems that we're moving up the ladder. Instead of going down, we're now moving back up towards source in the context of the yugas. What does each one of you think? What do you see as the future days going forward? And then you bring in the age of Aquarius, which is the electrical age, which is all of it. Obviously, then you have the Neuralink. Do you guys think that maybe this Neuralink's going to gain any traction and we are going to move kind of into machine? What's your take on that? What do you guys see for the future days moving into this Phoenix reset? Is that going to bring us out of that and remove us completely away from that? What are you guys' take on that? Jason, go ahead on that first. What do you think? What do you see?
Well, first, I think, there's no easy answer that explains everybody's condition. I'll give you an example. One thing that is very clear, that every time the United States initiates a war, the economy is boosted fantastically. Wealth is... a lot of wealth comes back into into the hands of the entrepreneurs as opposed to the Fortune 500 companies. Yes, the military industrial complex makes money. Yes, the Fortune 500 companies make money. But during such an economic boom, the little man also makes a lot of money during war years. So I'm seeing a great boon to the American economy, maybe the whole North American economy, maybe even some other Western nations in Europe. I'm seeing that, but at the same time, I'm also seeing a level of depravity that's going to be introduced vicariously through virtual reality technology, which is already being rolled out. As a matter of fact, 2024 is their target year to roll out a whole new system that Meta's been working on with Microsoft. They've been working together, merging their game systems into one single universe that's accessible by one system. And I don't know exactly the full extent, but I know there's going to be millions of people jumping on board, because in their system, you're going to be able to do things that you can't do in real life. And there's a lot of elderly people who are going to just jump into the system. Of course, there's going to be kids. The kids don't even know how to play outside anymore. But I think the main resistance is going to come from people in their late 30s, 40s, 50s, maybe early 60s to such a system. But this isn't something that's going to be ubiquitous. It's going to be rolled out where people can afford it, where the infrastructure is kind of old and it's already very well established, like the Americas and Western civilizations. But war for the rest of the world in Asia, China, yeah, it's not the same. They have an economic downturn. So what's going to happen when Chinese economy starts collapsing? What's going to happen when an incident happens with Taiwan, and next thing you know, China realized, oh shit, the United States just created a single piece of legislation that just turned over every Chinese property in the United States back under eminent domain. This is legal. Congress can easily pass a law, and it immediately nullifies all the land holdings that the Chinese have in the United States. People are worried about China buying up everything in the United States. There's nothing to worry about. This is a scam. It's a very old scam. These economic stimulus packages are given to these other countries. These other countries' governments spread it among themselves and the wealthy. Then they turn around and tax their own people and basically force those companies in other countries to buy foreign holdings and buy foreign land, knowing that in a far distant future, that debt's going to be recalled by that country exercising eminent domain and call it. This is what's going to happen to China. Their economy is going to collapse overnight.
You think so?
When Western countries start doing that, yeah, China is absolutely dependent on foreign manufacturing. They don't have a prayer if that shit is cut off. If the United States in a wartime scenario begins to internalize its economy and begins to manufacture things right here in America, China is done. They're over with. They're in trouble.
So, but we move to 2040, the Phoenix event happens. Now we're in 2050. So let's just say 20 years from now. What do you see? Jordan, I'm going to let you take on this. What do you, 20 years from now, what do you see? What is our life going to look like with all the knowledge you have of, all the decoding, astrology, numerology, gematria, all that? What do you think our reality is going to look like?
It's really funny. The last movie I watched was called Ready Player One.
So
Have you seen it?
So
yeah,
good.
of course.
Such a good.
Yeah. And so I gave it a chance. I'm one of these people that if enough people tell me to watch a movie, I'm instantaneously kind of turned off by it. But if enough of my people, like the people in my community and the people that, I'm vibing with, tell me about a movie, I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll give it a shot. And I had this little moment to fit it in, and I'm starting to really feel every year on Netflix and Hollywood that they're doing their best to just predictively program us with something that like they want us to bring to life. Like it's almost like they want us to manifest what they're showing us. Every year we get a new post-apocalyptic movie or a transhumanist sort of movie or something showing you post-cataclysm, really low population sort of reality where there's a big divide between the rich and the poor. We've seen these movies so many times, and every year they're coming out with a new one. I think even maybe in a couple of days, the new Hunger Games is coming out, right?
Yep.
Speaking of movies that are like this. And yeah, so I just wanted to comment starting with that. I think this Ready Player One world, I think this is painting a picture of what some people might use in their imagination to see for this 2050 kind of timeline, that based on the question you asked. I think even the movie is in 2052, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
You know what? I didn't get through the whole movie. I was like, you know, but if that's what it is, you know what I'm going to do? Pull the astrology chart, just like I did with altered carbon.
Yeah, I mean, I might be wrong because I wasn't paying attention to those sort of specifics, but it's really funny because the last one-on-one that I had with Jason, we brought up the movie Boy and His Dog.
Yeah.
And that cover of the movie, it literally says 2024.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
Fun. Yeah. And so I mean, that's another thing to consider, right? Like, what are they telling us? What are they showing us? You know, that movie was big amongst the truthers circle that is interested in the mud flood theory and these kind of Tartaria conversation, etc. But yeah, so I'm just laying out some of the groundwork here through what are the optics, like what are the things that the stewards of this matrix spellcast us with, and what's the pendulum they're swinging in front of our faces. And then we know about this Neuralink stuff, we know about all this exoteric stuff, and what's our truth. You know, I think that's what a lot of people are interested in. And for me, it's really funny because maybe this is not a very sexy answer, but that's what I'm known for. 2 years ago, I started setting intentions for what I wanted my year to be all about. And I had some trouble with relationships because of the way I am. I'm very, you know, just in my own lane. I just disregard so many other things, and that includes really awesome people. And it took me a while to wake up to this, the way I was treating other people. So I dedicated last year, or this year of 2023, to relationships, and it was a transformative year. Like, I made every single thing that I did, from the art that I was creating to just the free time that I had, just being super grateful for all the people in my life. And what I noticed that it did for me was it made all the static go away. Like, I no longer became concerned on what the future might be like.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me anymore. You know, and I'm so grateful that at any hour of the day, like, I could call you, Logan. Like, I could call you and I could talk to you.
Yep.
So that's really what matters most to me. You know, that's what really, so next year I'm setting another intention, and now I'm in a whole different way of perceiving life. So whatever is to come in 20, 30, 40, 50, I mean, I just know that I won't be doing it. And just like during C19, I wasn't wearing masks and taking these, I got to a point where I wasn't even engaging in conversations about it. It was just boring to me.
Yeah.
Talking about a fake virus is just, it's not inspiring.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't inspire me, then what am I giving my prana to, you know? So yeah, I know it's probably not the most sexy answer, but it's kind of where I'm at in my life. And I'm creating a lot of art and a lot of stuff to get people to be in this similar flow state, so that whatever we are decoding and deciphering about the so-called future, that we could do it in a way where, like, we're not letting it affect us, you know, and we'll have a way of responding to it even if we're outnumbered. Because we all just went through that with C19, where a very large majority of humanity believed in that. And that changed the way our freedoms were. Like, we couldn't just hop in a plane and go wherever we want. We couldn't just go to any facility. We didn't have that opportunity, right? Because too much of the percentage of the populace believed in something, right? So these sort of compliance, obedience experiments are going to continue. They're going to happen again. Maybe not exactly the way that it did with C19, but they will happen again. And this time around, I hope what we do in response to it is we remember our brothers and sisters that are surrounding us and focus on the humanity of it all, rather than this whole, like, kind of, you know, I told you so, and you guys are falling for it, and pointing the finger and that sort of energy, which it's just so destructive. And I hope that people are feeling these words, because we're just getting going on these psyops. Like, if you thought the last 5 years was weird and controlling and all of those negative sort of, well, get ready, you know, seriously, get ready. It's just getting started. So that's my take on it. I'm sure that there's a more sophisticated response, but for me, that's where I'm at.
Okay. Appreciate the comment. Always love listening to both of you guys are just amazing minds. You know, ladies and gentlemen, as you sit here and go through the comments and listen to our voices, check out the photographs and think, use your imagination. What do you think as the audience out there? And, you know, like as a decoder, someone like myself, I've become a minimalist, which I've been sharing for a very long time, for many years now. And you know what it's done for me? It's alleviated the burden of the mainstream affecting my life. And, you know, it's like, I'm not afraid to die anymore. I think one of the requisites to kind of get in tune with raising the bar, getting a higher frequency, having a DNA activation upgrade is number one, not being afraid to die. You know, there's a long time for me that I was running. Like it started with the pole shift and, you know, I was like bouncing around. I was living in fear. This is the time when I was a fan of Alex Jones and InfoWars. And I was living through that layer of life. And boy, you talk about fight or flight. You know, now I look at Alex Jones and I just marvel at his character. I appreciate how he shows up. And to me, it's just a stand-up comedian. I appreciate the way he shows up and because he's living out his purpose. You know, he's obviously somebody who's a disruptor. I would call him a disruptor. As is, I would say that each and every one of you, especially you, Jordan, and you, Jason, you guys are like what I would call you're disruptors. You're the shit stirrers. And when you disrupt and you don't pay attention to anything outside of you, the ripple that you create, you become that huge master manifester, so to speak. And you become that resistance without even kind of attempting to be the resistance. So for me, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, I think you need to be open to whatever's going to be coming down the pike, because honestly, I don't think anybody has the answer. We have ideas. But you got to be open for anything, because if your idea of how the future is going to look doesn't come true, you may get emotionally involved and get pissed off at that. And then next thing you know, you lower your frequency, and now you're getting sucked back into the game again. So I think it's really, really important personally to, as I've been saying, Jordan, you've been saying, Jason, you've been saying, you know, Jason does it with the errant, Jordan does it with don't give away your prana. Me, it's all about, you know, you being the star of the movie and not being an extra in somebody else's. I think this is really, really important as a foundation, as a society in this very closed circuit here, like everybody here in this stream. You know, all of you great people here in this stream, you know, you're here because you don't want to participate in the outside circle, the mainstream. I always reference it as being the needle outside of the haystack. I don't want to be the needle in the haystack. That's too common. I want to be the needle outside of the haystack, leave the haystack alone. And that is where you're going to get into a position of not really being part of the mainstream, which is where I get into, you know, becoming lukewarm. And if you want to bring theology into this, et cetera, because we know that there's a duality that exists in this reality. There has to be, there's predator prey. And I've gone over this so many times with nature, especially with animals, and, you know, using rose bushes and aphids and ladybugs. And I mean, the salmons probably think the grizzly bear is the devil, right? And the ants think the spider's the devil. And it's just, that's just how it works. And then we can correlate that to the people on the world stage. And you would, you know, if you get away from the blaming game on the world stage, I believe that you've leveled up. You've had a DNA activation upgrade. I've been saying this and pulling tarot cards through my lives, showing that the message coming through is there's DNA activation upgrades coming in for you to seize and take hold of. But the requisite for that is you must release the things that you've been doing as habitual practices. And one of the things in theology, you have the Lot and Sarah, and they were in Sodom and Gomorrah, and they're leaving the city, and they were told not to look back. And that story is relevant for every single one of you, is that when you're told, hey, stop paying attention to the mainstream, and you continually go back to it. Now, it's okay to observe it, but you continually go back to it and let it emotionally influence you. That's when you're gonna get turned to a pillar of salt. That's how I correlate that story to our reality. So anyway, that's my long drawn out answer. Jordan, why don't you go ahead and ask a question, or maybe you want to bring up a topic that you want to talk about?
I would love to know some of your thoughts about next year in general. You know, it's what we're closest to. I think, you know, we have a lot that could be happening in the world stage between now and, you know, the elections. So I would love to just know your take on maybe Q1 or Q2, like the start of 2024, and take it from there.
Well, you and I obviously did that financial collapse, and it was me that was, and that's why I don't like doing predictions, because you get crucified if you get them wrong. People just they don't look at what you get right; they look at what you get wrong in that context. I think 2024. You're talking about next year. 2024 is. I had thought 2023 was going to be a pretty big marker year, considering it has the 223 or the mirror of the 322. But 2024 being the year of the dragon, and in the Chinese culture, that's the most revered animal, and that is tied to Ra as well, radium and Ra. I think there's some big things coming down the pike for 2024. I'm open to anything, but again, for me as a human being, the level that I'm at this point is I've tucked myself away and I've become a minimalist. And when I do turn on any of the mainstream, I look at it like right now I watch the show Chicago PD. It's kind of like my escape from reality, and I enjoy that show. But when I watch the show, I catch myself getting emotionally involved with the show, and I'm like, "What are you doing, Logan? Why are you getting emotionally involved with something that's not real?" Well, because when you're engaged in that, you don't even realize that you're doing that kind of stuff. And it's so easy to go back into that aspect of our reality that we call real life. But there's real actors and actresses playing out the movie. So you would say, well, it's make-believe, but there's real actors and there's a real screenplay and there's a real director and there's real lighting and real sound people. It's the same thing in our reality here. So what I see for 2024, 2025, I just see more advancement of kind of what you brought into the limelight. And Jason, I see the possibility of World War III. I think that's coming down the pike. And I don't really care. I don't really care. I'm not concerned about that. Yeah, I do have care and compassion for people that may get killed, collateral damage, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, I do have care and compassion for that, but there's nothing I can do about it. Absolutely nothing that I can do about it. You know what I can do? I can go outside and feed the stray dogs and stray cats here in Mexico. That's what I can do to make a difference. I can't make a difference over in the Middle East right now. And if that gets worse moving into 2024, 2025, well, I'm not over there. If it was over here in Mexico, it'd be a different story. But I don't have boots on the ground. So that's kind of my take on it, Jordan. Jason, what do you think?
Well, I'm a little bit more specific because you ask about what's going to happen next year. So I would have to, viewing this as a holographic construct, I would have to fall back on 1972. And 1972, I don't know, man. The Olympic terror attacks were not in Paris. I can't remember where the Olympics were in 1972, but they were not in Paris.
I think the terrorist attack happened in Germany.
Okay, so that would have been the Munich games. So we're talking.
That's correct.
It was. I'm seeing the same thing going to happen in 2024. I think it's going to be a triggering event. And on my own channel to my community, I have given predictions because it looks to me like they're going to roll out with the lockdowns again, and they're going to roll out with the travel restrictions again, and they're going to do this under a totally different mantle. It's not about COVID anymore. Now it's going to be it's going to be basically because there's going to be terrorist events in many Western nations simultaneously, all going off at the exact same time, because the United States is interfering and in favor of Israel in a conflict that unfolds next year. Now, this is what I've already posted. I've already put all this out there on my channel, based off calendrical isometrics, based off the patterns that I've seen using the Greek Olympiad system. So I'm only being specific because you asked a specific year. You asked about next year. So 2024 being the holographic reflection of 1972, with 1998 being the pivotal year, the isometric epicenter, I can't help but see that the Watergate scandal erupted in 1972. And we had a lot of controversy where, was it Republicans or Democrats that got caught stealing?
Both.
I can't remember. In the Watergate scandal. This is what led to the removal of a U.S. president from office before his term finished. This is what led to that. This is what led to Nixon resigning. Right before they were about to impeach him, he submitted his letter of resignation. So Watergate happened in 1972. It's very possible that Biden is not going to finish his term. It's very possible. So Uh, 1972 had a lot of violence. I remember in the UK and Ireland. I want to say Black Thursday, Bloody Thursday, something like that. I can't remember. I don't have my notes in front of me right now, but there was something called Bloody Thursday or something in Ireland, where British soldiers had basically opened fire in a crowd of civilians. It caused a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of chaos for 2024, but I'm seeing the focus of the chaos actually being Israel, and I see Israel using conservative Christianity as a buffer zone between them and all their Muslim enemies. This is what I'm seeing in 2024.
Huh. Well, isn't it so interesting that the three major Abrahamic religions all have a temple and they're all set up in that part of the world? I think it's just fascinating.
Hey, the elite know what they're doing. This is all by design, my brother.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I just think it's hilarious how all this stuff just perfectly synchronizes together. Just so perfectly. And, you know, if you're in the, I mean, you know, I'm going to ask the audience here, right? This is just directed towards you. If you lived in Israel right now, would you stay there? Knowing what you know at this level of consciousness, or would you say, I'm freaking kicking stones, I'm getting out of there? What would you do? You know, what is it that you would do if you knew what was, I mean, it's not looking good, man, when we're talking about these adjectives, good and bad. Like, we know that it's, you know, things move from dark to light, et cetera, or light to dark. But what would you do as a human being, you know, knowing what you know, just being a conscious strategic mover here, et cetera, et cetera? I think that would be a good question to take into consideration. Jason, let's direct it towards you, man. What topic comes to your mind? What questions do you have? What do you want to talk about?
Hey, first, I'm listening too, so I'm going to answer that question. I'm going to tell you now, I'm going to get the hell out of there, and Dawn better catch up.
Bam! All right, Jordan, I know you're going to get the hell out of there. I'm sure you're a world traveler, so.
Yeah, man.
I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not doing it. I'm gone.
Yeah, you're out. History. See you later. You know, ladies and gentlemen.
One of the things I want to comment on just really quickly, because while it's on my mind, Jason brought up 1972 and this whole Munich thing, and that was exactly what made me seal the deal and what I said before he even brought that up. You know, like, I believe that there'd be a terrorist attack or something of the sort, some sort of ritual during this next Summer Olympics. But he brought up 1972, and I quickly went into the S&P 500 chart in 1972 just to see what the market was doing. And yeah, it's pretty amazing how similar this chart looks, mimicking to what we have pretty much right now.
Is that right?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. So great find. It's very interesting. I've been using the Chinese zodiac a lot lately, so I've been looking at a specific pattern we have for Q1 and Q2 of the year of the dragon, and we seemingly just move up into April every dragon year. And when I look back at 1972 to stay relevant, we literally moved right up into April. So it's no different. It would be like a perfect mirror, actually. And the time frame of the peak of that market, although that happened into a Shemitah year, which we definitely need to consider when we're talking about markets, but the patterning and the structure and just the whole thing that I'm looking at it's strikingly similar. So I appreciate you, Jason, for bringing this up. I'm going to look into the 1972 year some more.
Oh man, I'm finna blow your wig back one more time, brother. Don't stop yet. Are you ready?
Bring it.
I don't need a wig because I have a pretty nice full head of hair.
Yeah,
but
you do. You certainly do, brother.
Yeah. I had to cover my mic for a minute because I thought I was gonna sneeze. I'm a little under the weather. But okay. Like I say, if something is true, it can be seen from multiple different mathematical vantage points. So 2024 is isometrically reflected with 1972. That's because 1998 is the epicenter, meaning there's an equidistant amount of time from 1998 after 1972. That exact amount of time after 1998 is 2024. But 1972 is also an epicentral year because it's 52 years before 2024 and 52 years before 1972 when these terrorists attacked the Olympics and all that stuff is 1920 when the Olympics was officially made international and they adopted a new flag that showed the 5 Olympic rings. It's the first time that ceremony and that flag had ever been shown. They just debuted it. It was the new International Olympics, and they invited all nations on board. So we have a confirmation of this terrorist attack in 2024 from 2 totally independent vantage points here.
Wow. What about the 5, man? Why 5 rings? Why the hell is it? What's up with this 5? Jason, what are you finding with the 5 in your patterns? And then Jordan, I want to get your take on this. What's so special about the number 5 for you, Jason, in your research?
Oh, I read an old poem one time that broke down the numbers. 1 was the number of wholeness. 2 was the number of guardians and things guarded. A secret symbol of the pillars. 3 was a triune number. It was a threefold chord is uneasily broken. The poem went on and said 4 is the number of earth, as in the cardinal directions and the 4 winds. And then it says something really interesting. It says 5. It doesn't describe the number. It says 5 has the power to divide and yet be whole. And then it goes on to 6 is the number of man, 7 is the number of completion, and 8 is the number of new beginnings. Because when 7 pass, the 8th is number 1 of the next series. But it's an old poem I read a long time.
That's interesting.
I read a long time. But it always
yeah, that could really confuse people. What you said was so awesome. You said 5 can be divided. Say that again.
It said that 5 has the power to divide and yet be whole.
Yeah. So the reason that is so powerful is because 5 and 5 becomes 10, which then reduces back to 1. Everything gets mirrored in this world because it's not just 5, it's about who witnesses the 5. So for some people, they might be looking at it, they're like, no, you can't divide 5 and then be whole. But it actually, that's what it's saying, because the human being is arm, leg, arm, head, 5 fingers, 5 toes, that sort of reflection concept, where the star, if you think about what we are, the pentagram, the pentacle. So yeah, that's really interesting what you just shared, because it speaks about a concept in a sentence where the neophyte would not understand it at all, but somebody who gets that everything must be mirrored and not mimicked, they will find the truth within that statement. It's very powerful.
How about taking into consideration that the number 5, when you put it on a pair of dice, is the letter X, and that shape is actually tied to our DNA, because it's interesting, Jason, you said it divides. Well, the double helix, when you magnify that twice, it becomes the golden spiral, and it becomes a 5 because the 2 points meet in the middle, and there's going to be your X on a dice, right? The 5, which is tied to the DNA, and that's so powerful, because again, how about our 5 senses? Yeah. Smelling and touching and seeing.
I got one for you. You can take the number 5, and each point equidistant from the other is going to produce a pentagram. Everybody knows this. I didn't have to tell you that. Mm-hmm. But if you render that 2-dimensional pentagram into a 3-dimensional object, you have a pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You sure do.
And then this goes even deeper into Polaris. But yeah, this is the lit conversation.
The pyramid is the pentagram, and what sits in the middle? You know, if you take a pyramid and you put it over your dial pad or your calculator, what sits in the very middle? The number 5. 5 is the apex of the pyramid. If you were to do that with the geometrical shape of the tetrahedron. 5 is
one thing that's interesting. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Jordan.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, I always tell people when we're getting into decoding to speak out everything and then speak it out without thinking too hard. So when we say 5, the first kind of syllable we get is phi. So yep. Phi in the Greek alphabet, and then we start to get so much here. Just look at the symbol of phi. It's the pillar with the ring around it. We're talking about the Olympic rings.
Yep.
Phi is the 21st letter in the Greek alphabet. That comes back to Saturn in gematria numerology, 21. So this is, it's important. You know, if you look at Phi, it also looks like a tulip.
Yep.
We could, you know, this goes into so many different layers when you're getting into symbolism, but I always tell people just speak things out. Just talk it out. But that's also pi. You just keep the P or the H silent. You have phi, pi. You start getting into mathematics. That's coming back to phi. And the reason why is because it's of man. And man is always, it's the big symbolism behind man will be the 5. I know we talk about 6 with carbon and all of that other stuff, the Bible reference, but think about just the 5-pointed star, as we were saying, and that coming back to mathematics. Humans made math. We came up with it. We discovered it, perhaps, is another way of saying this in a more wise, way. But yeah, look at the symbol, and then always speak out everything you're saying, and you're going to get more depth to it, whether you're looking at numbers or you're looking at letters.
I agree. And I will add to that, because the 5-pointed star in Sumerian logograms is called the Arab. And this was the plow sign, and it was the symbol of when the Godhead actually intervened in the affairs of the harvest. When the humanity was the harvest, the world is the field. Excuse me, guys. Like I said, I'm under the weather. But the same star had a dual meaning in Sumerian. It was Shar, which means king or kingship. Wow. The more I talk, the more I cough. So, you know that in mathematics, you already know that pi is 3.14, and you know that phi is 1.618. So we have two mathematical constructs. One is the cycle or circle, and the other one is the curvature. When you multiply the cycle times the curvature, you get 5.08. It is mathematically almost perfect 5.
Wow.
I love it. Well, remember, ladies and gentlemen, the first image of the DNA was photograph number 51. And if you look at that image, you're going to see the X and then the point in the middle. So if you take a pyramid and you flip it upside down, whereas you're looking at the base, you're going to get 4 positions, north, south, east, and west. But when you flip that thing back over again, you're going to have the 1 point in the middle there, which gives you that 5, which gives you that 51, if you want to look at it that way, et cetera, et cetera. And it's such a big data. And 51 is big because that's the what you call it for the Great Pyramid of Giza, the slope.
It's the sloping angle.
The sloping angle. Yep, exactly. And, I got a big decode coming out on Khufu and the measurements. And I know that, and I'm not saying this to, trust me, ladies and gentlemen, I don't give a shit. It's not about me. Don't care. I'm just telling you, this is like new information that no one's ever disclosed before. I haven't seen it. And I'm being used to tell you this, so I don't care. But I'm just saying is when you take the 29 degrees north latitude of the Great Pyramid of Giza and you take the 31 degrees east of the Great Pyramid of Giza and you bring those into the mathematical equations of phi and pi, phi being light coming down 29 degrees, and you measure 29 degrees, 29 letters, 29 numbers into the string of the golden ratio, 1.61, and you go 29 digits in and you add that up, and then you do the same thing with the latitude, the longitude east, the 31 degrees, and you do that in pi, because pi is the measurement of longitudinally. The numbers you're going to get is 115 and 151 when you add those up. And I'm going to be showing this. It's this 15 number. And you're going to have 151, 115, and you get Papyrus, 11. Jason, you know about that. Let's talk about this. Jason, you know about this. I know you know about this. Jordan, you probably know about this. Papyrus 115. What the hell's that all about? And the two guys that discovered that, and why is that tied into the Great Pyramid of Giza? The measurements, the slope, it's this damn 1551. Jason, you know about the Papyrus 115, right?
You were educating me on something I have never heard.
Oh, is that right? You don't know about the Papyrus 115? Okay, well, that's tied to the number of the beast and the number of the... See, I was like a big proponent of the number of the beast being 666, which of course, that's to me is the number of man, which is carbon, 6 protons, 6 electrons, 6 neutrons. But when you correlate to the beast above, there's this story about it being 616, and that is a little fragment that these two guys found. It's called Papyrus 115. I thought you may have known that, but that, yeah, the 115.
Oh, no, I didn't listen, Logan. I didn't know it was called that.
Oh yeah.
On my own channel about a year ago, I did mention that there is an old Christian text that decodes the book of Revelation, and the commentators in that text over 100 years ago said that 666 was a mistake. The original number of the beast was 616.
Yep, it is. Mm-hmm. And if you go look at, ladies and gentlemen, I did it. I have on my Patreon, Beast Decoded. I'll give you a big truth bomb that I don't have on public. If you look at the Last Supper painting, that's the great beast. You have 6 apostles on the left, you have Jesus in the middle, and you have 6 apostles on the right. 616. And there you have the great beast. So when I say to all of you that Jesus is not what you think, because I know a lot of you you're gonna nah, Logan's an ass. Wow, he's Antichrist. He's the Antichrist. Yeah, okay, whatever. I'm the devil.
How dare you,
totally
Logan.
Fine. Yeah, Jordan, go ahead, bro.
How dare you speak of our master, bro?
It's been butchered, man. The whole thing's been butchered. The whole thing, dude. When you take, listen, if you take I did this. Okay, I did this. If you take the names of the apostles, all 12, including Jesus, from the original Greek of supposedly where it came from, James and Simon, and you do it through the Greek numerology, the total you're going to get through Greek numerology is 374, which just so happens to be exactly the numbers and letters that attach to G-O-D. G-O-D is 374. In Chaldean, of course. But there's the correlation. So the great beast above is the Stargate, which is astrology, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm a fan of astrology. I'm a practitioner of it, but I'm going to tell you right now, that thing harvests your energy. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to believe in it.
What this all comes back to is Apollyon. I think that's like the least spoken about part of all of this. You know, like this is just Apollyon. That's what was coded into all of this shit.
Yep.
Like Codex Vaticanus, all of it. It's just the sun.
Yep.
It's the sun portal.
Yep. Sun, Ra. Sun. It's all massive amount of sun worship. Jason, how far back can you go, and reference where there's this massive plug of sun worship? And I got a tag to Ahura Mazda and Zoroastrianism and et cetera. But where's a big timeline dip of where, besides the Egyptians, where the sun worship comes out and just really delivers itself?
I'm gonna tell you. And look, just because you attack the integrity of the Christian imagery and icon, I don't have the same reaction that Waters above had. So I just want to tell you, but that doesn't mean I don't negate the fact that you're not an asshole. I'm just saying I just agree that you might be onto something. But I just
I love it.
I'm
Yo, you're my boy, Jason. You're my boy.
The greatest time that I can recall right now is from about 160 AD to about 320 to 330 AD. The greatest single most the religious movement that had swept through all the Roman provinces from North Africa, Palestine. The New Palestina had been taken over by the Romans. It had swept through all the way coming from even the Dacian frontier is Mithraism. Mithraism was the main religion that the Senate in Rome was watching. And the reason for this was because the legionnaires started to become religious, and this caused a lot of problems. In fact, there is a terrible story where the Romans had initially tried to combat this, and they practiced decimation. They practiced decimation, hoping that the other legions would fear, but instead, the faith in Mithra, the sun god who had 12 apostles, and he healed people, and he taught resurrection. This is Mithra, not Jesus. Jesus is the 16th. He is the 16th religion that all had a savior in the flesh who came here, was crucified, had 12. A lot of people don't know this. They got to read Kersey Graves from over 100 years ago, the 16 crucified saviors, or a modern scholar who speaks multiple languages. Her books are fantastic, Archaix, or Gerald Massey from the 1880s. They all told the story perfectly on the 16 crucified saviors and how Jesus was the epitome. He was the final one. He's the one that the Council of Nicaea adopted because they were trying to distance Gnosticism from Mithraism. And under decimation, the Romans took a whole legion and they counted out every 10th man. And right there, they put to the sword every single 10th man was killed right there on the field. Then they were told to reform. When they reformed, they were asked to renounce Mithra and serve the Senate. And they said that they would serve the Senate, but they would not renounce Mithra. And that's when the Roman Senate realized, well, shit, we got a problem. Because whatever this religion is, it is stealing the hearts of men to the point they no longer fear their government. So I'm not saying Mithraism was a cult or was a false religion. I'm saying that at that time period, before Christianity was really came about, because Christianity came out of this. It came out of an amalgamation between the Gnostics who were alive and the Essenes and the Therapeutai. These were very strong religious philosophical groups that were active at the time. And they merged with Buddhism because Emperor Osaka had sent 30,000 Buddhist monks everywhere. And most people don't even know their history. They don't even know that the center of Christianity was the city of Antioch. This is in the New Testament writings. But archaeologists will tell you all day long, the greatest hub of Buddhism in the ancient world outside of India was Antioch in Syria. So all this is covered up because of the Council of Nicaea in 325, and then in about 800 councils after that, all the way up to the 13th century, they literally destroyed every record they could trying to hide all this. And then they had to exterminate 2 whole cultures of people who knew all this history, called the Waldenses and the Cathars. And they finally got rid of them, and it was by the 14th and 15th century, right around the rise of the Renaissance, that finally the world had basically forgotten that Christianity came straight out of the religion called Mithraism. And it was Mithra who was crucified. It was Mithra that had 12 disciples. It was Mithra who laid hands on the sick. So in answer to your question, the Mithraic faith was the most compelling thing that changed the Roman Empire and turned it into an empire, basically, of religion. And this is the true beginning of Christianity. This is why the Christian books are so different. This is why the letters of Paul, this is why 13 books in the New Testament that are supposed to be Christian don't cite a single miracle Jesus did or a single quote from Jesus' mouth. Paul never cites Jesus, never says a single miracle, none of that, because his letters were from a different faith, a different belief system that was incorporated into what had become Christianity. So I don't mean to monopolize the conversation, man, but you asked me about sun worship, and that's what it was.
I mean, I love it because numerology says Mithra is the total of 17, which is the same exact outcome as the Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh, which is 17 in the Chaldean numerology. And so it's leading to the sun, ladies and gentlemen. The sun, Psalms 84 verses 11, God says, I am a sun and a shield. I would assume the shield means the moon. And there you have the analema shape, the 88, time travel, et cetera, the father, the bride and the groom, which is the sun and the moon. It's really interesting. I mean, it's just kind of funny how it's just all regurgitation. It's just like, it's like I always say to my audience a lot, I say that I think God, whatever the whole aspect of that is, the best rendition I can give of what God would represent in our modern world is like a rich woman's walk-in closet. Like she's got 50,000 pairs of shoes. She's got an unlimited amount of pair of jeans. She's got 1 million different blouses, dresses, etc. Some of them still have the tags on it. That's God. It has every damn thing you can possibly imagine. It's a woman's walk-in closet. And that's the whole thing. Go ahead.
You've been in Don's club. You've been over here at Don's house.
Oh, is that right? Okay. Yeah, and you know, when you were saying the
that's
Mithras,
a T-shirt right there. God is a rich woman's closet.
Buy that one.
Can you name this podcast "God is a rich woman's closet"?
I'm sweating.
I'm so in trouble tonight.
Jason's gonna be sleeping in the closet tonight.
Get this back. To get this back on the rails, a lot of people mistake the Statue of Liberty for several things, you know, but it really is just Mithra.
Yep.
And that symbolism is obvious. So yeah, the origins of this cult of Zionism really does go back to Mithraism and many other things, but just look at the word. It has a ra in it. And one thing to mention with etymology is anytime you see mi, like my or mi, that is to bind, that prefix. It's to bind. And you know the word religion goes back to religare, which means to bind together, essentially. And there you go. It's the origins of this type of concept of a combination between justice and sun worship and this concept of what the light is. And one thing, the final thing to mention when we talk about light, we need to talk about the visible spectrum of light. That is the most important part. So if I can give a easy to digest concept of what Horus is, because this eventually all goes back to that too. Horus is the visible light spectrum, what humans can perceive.
Yeah.
Okay. That's probably a good thing for many who are tuning into this to walk away with and have something to chew on when you're perceiving this mythology pattern and plagiarism that keeps bringing up this concept of a savior or the light or some sort of good guy, you know, or the concept of justice and being moral, etc. So that's definitely really powerful stuff that Jason brought up, and there's plenty of symbolism for people to go out there and look at the old imagery of Mithra, and you're going to see this used in many cultures, all cultures throughout the world, and they will tell you it's this or tell you it's that, but it really does go back to what Jason was bringing up.
Yeah, it's
Even Jesus is given a title called Son of Righteousness. That was the dignified title of Mithra.
Huh.
When it's talking about, it's in the New Testament, it's not spelled son as in the skion of a father. No, it's son as in the sun in the sky. Jesus is actually given that title in the New Testament, the Son of Righteousness. So there's a clue right there that it came straight out of Mithraism.
Well, I mean, all this.
Do you know how many images there are also of Mithra holding what looks like a lightsaber?
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's a huge piece of pattern symbolism that I've seen with Mithra. Of course, you have the piercing of the bull. But anyways, yeah, you do see a lot of these carvings, statues, etc. Something that doesn't look like a sword. Like, we all know what swords look like, but we know George Lucas and these, you know, apex predators know what they're doing with all of these movies that people, you know, love. So anyways, I mean, I am a firm believer of technology being way more advanced at one time comparatively to today. And that lightsaber kind of vibe seems to be the hidden, you know, or most overlooked thing with Mithra. Anyways.
Well, it's all this. How much referenced is the damn sun in all this? I mean, okay, so that leads into this. Let's shift gears a little bit here. Okay. Is it possible? Now, I have it like the New Testament, and I've done decodes on this. Those of you that have watched this, Crypto Kingdom Part 1 and Part 2, referencing the theological aspects of Revelation and it talking about Jesus telling you to follow into a house with a man bearing a pitcher of water. That's obviously Aquarius. Hello, that's a freaking no-brainer. And then it says, following that, it clearly says that the sun and the moon will be darkened. They will be no more. The sea will be no more. New heaven and new earth, yada, yada, yada. So guys, Jordan, Jason, do you think it's possible that the moon is a burnt out sun? We've already talked about this. And do you think it's possible the sun will burn out and it will shed no more light?
Man, that's a hard one because, I mean, you asked me about the sun, so I have to go back to things that, like the Fatima apparition of 1917, when over 75,000 people actually watched the sun act erratic for about 2.5 hours, moved across the sky, it danced, it plunged over. Now, we know this is a highly localized phenomena, only observed from a certain area, Portugal, I think. But the rest of the world didn't see any of that, because if the sun is truly 93 million miles away, then the rest of the world would have seen that. It's called a pole shift. But it didn't happen. But for 75,000 people, it did. They saw and experienced the same thing. So I have to go back to 1752, when the sun took on the form of a gigantic octagonal construct in the sky and started spitting flames all over the ground, over Norway, over a city called Slavenge. I have to go back to 1763, when people looked up from Europe and they said the sun looked sick and started getting boils and lacerations across its face. And it had developed a face with eyes and a mouth, and it got bigger, and then it just got dark and dimmed out. And then there were storms and people got sick. I have to go to when you ask me about the sun and what I think it is, I'm going to have to fall back on human experience and what I have come to believe as true eyewitness accounts. These are things that trouble me, because they automatically shift my my definitions into construct, simulacrum, however you want to pronounce it, simulation theory, of some type of virtual spiritual reality. So it's very hard to ask me about the sun and for me to take it seriously that the sun is a solid. I can't, because the moon to me appears holographic, especially in pictures where you can see stars through the dark part of the moon. When it comes to the sky, Logan, I'm probably one of the worst people to ask anything about, because by virtue of just going through so much data and having to place it somewhere in my paradigm, because I do not practice exclusions. I'm not a scientist. I don't cherry pick my data. I have to incorporate it all. And when I incorporate it all, something tells me that we're real down here. We're experiencing all these things down here. But the sky is simulated to the point to where it's not solid at all. We're looking at a light show. This is my opinion, but it's one that is supported by a lifetime of research. I can't get around these events. I only named 3 of them right now. I could name a whole lot more. I got a whole bunch of videos on them, providing examples. I just can't see the sun as something we can objectify. I think it's phenomena, just like the Phoenix phenomenon. It's not an intruder planet. It's not some giant machinery in the sky. It is phenomena, meaning it is controlled by coding by something else. It's a protocol. So yeah, I'm the worst. You may need to ask Jordan about.
I think you did a good job, man. I think you did a good job. Jordan, what's your take on it?
The sun and the moon are plasma phenomenons, and I look at the sun merely as a taker, not a giver. And I look at the moon as a reflection of this physical realm. And everything that's above this firmament dome is purely an optical illusion from this surface that we stand on. So we're not capable of judging it. Also, we're aware that our spectrum of light that we can perceive as human beings is very, very limited. And I do look at everything above as a holographic sort of simulated, perceived, sky. But at the end of the day, nobody can really prove it to be what NASA says, and they're the best liars of all time. So everything they say, I believe the opposite. And what's brought me to my position on the moon is purely just through lots of intuition, but mostly actually study of this mythology concept and creation stories being similar across the board. Every single ancient civilization sharing a very similar story, which creates their mythology and gives a rhyme and reason to these impossible to understand or comprehend phenomenon in the celestials. So I think that even the concept of Saturn that we talk about, it's not that planet with rings up in the sky. Saturn is the concept of an eclipse. It is when the sun and the moon fall into eclipse for each other, which forms a ring. And when they fall into eclipse for each other, they get married, and you put the ring on the ring finger, because Saturn is the lord of the rings. Again, this is all optical illusions. So the sun being a more spiritual essence, falling into love with a physical essence, which is life. That would be the merger of the positive and negative, or male and feminine polarities. When they merge, they create in the mother's womb. And womb in French is matrice. It means matrix. So we are literally jacked into this matrix at birth through the mother's womb, through her matrice, and we are jacked into it through our central nervous system, which is ran by two core systems of the brain and the spinal column, and you go from there. So everything that's happening in this so-called reality, this above, the sky, etc., is a perception, first and foremost, of an optical illusion, where the human eyes have such a limited bandwidth to say that anything we're seeing must be as it seems. That's first, most important thing. Second of all, any amateur, you could buy really nice cameras today where you can just zoom in more and more and more, and you'll see that everything that is called a planet up there is just a luminary. It's just a dancing light. It looks like a donut. It's a torus field. Everything is torus fields. So that's my take on this whole concept of outer space, or the heavens, as they're called in the creation stories.
Interesting perspectives, gentlemen. Interesting perspectives. Let's shift gears and move into a very, very hot topic, and let's talk about the Phoenix event. And I want to lay the foundation here. And Jason, I'll let you start off when I lay this foundation. I just want to kind of give you an idea of something that I came up with. And I had thought about, because I'm working on this decode of Amityville Horror, that movie, the horror movie that came out, and the events that supposedly really happened. And that led me into, being possessed and exorcisms. And it gets really comical. I know it's not a comical topic, but it gets really comical. And how does that kind of allude to, how does that lead into the Phoenix event? Well, is it possible that every age, we could even use the Phoenix 138 years that you're very, close to, Jason. Every single thing that dies within a 138 year period gets stuck in here. It can't leave this dome, so to speak. It can't leave this realm. And when the Phoenix event happens, which is kind of like this massive harvesting reset, there's a big bang that happens. And that big bang would obviously be in maybe, the flood, or in this case, I think this time around, it's going to be plasma. I think we're all kind of in line with that. But this Phoenix event, as I have often said, that I think we're all going to be part of that Phoenix event. And when this harvest action happens, is it possible that all the energy that's been stuck here gets finally released, and you can literally kind of imagine the energy when it blows up, the big bang, boom, and then it goes up. And as it goes up, there's something at the top, because everything, rises in this sense. There's something in the top, and you would think that would be God, right? God collects all that energy, and maybe that energy ends up creating something, such as, I'm just going to give you a side note here. Inside of an engine, in a car's engine, you have the pistons. And the way the pistons work through the crankshaft and how it powers your car is that you have a spark and you have gasoline sprayed into the combustion chamber, and that explosion, which is a mini big bang, pushes the piston down, and it goes back up, and it starts to create power. It starts to create transition. Is that little microcosm explosion in that very moment, just that one explosion in the piston, in the head of the car, could that be in correlation to the bigger aspect of the Phoenix event, where you have this explosion, a lot of deaths, harvest, and that energy goes up, and that energy gets utilized? In the case of the car, it moves the wheels, but the harvesting of the energy with that explosion perhaps feeds something outside of this reality and creates something. Jason, what's your take on that? I know it's very science fiction-y and way out there, but I wanted to get your take on it. Jordan, I want to get your take on it too.
Okay, I'm gonna give a shout out to Martin Leakey, because Martin has gone through, while he was staying with us in Texas, he he was going through a lot of my Phoenix material, asking me some really penetrating questions, and he was showing me a bunch of images. He was asking me about what happens every 138 years. What is the physical phenomena? He didn't really want to know much about the socio-political type changes, the edits and all that, the textual changes, the changes in publishing and inventions and all these in infrastructure. He wanted to know more things like that were going on in the natural world. Martin Leakey actually came up with something very interesting. First of all, every 138 years the sun darkens. We automatically assume that something is covering it up, because that's what we've been trained since we were kids. We're thinking, oh, if the sun ever darkens, it's eclipse. The moon went in front of it. Simple as that. This is the model that we have been taught. So even myself, after all these years of researching this phenomenon, I never thought Martin's way, but until he started explaining it to me. And Martin said, well, doesn't the Phoenix phenomenon produce all this red dust and red mud and red rain all over the world? I said, yes, every 138 years. I got it documented. I can show you the reports going back thousands of years, man. This is what it does. He says the sun goes out. Red mud, red dust, and red rain is deposited all over the world. And he said this whole 138 year period is attached to the solar minimum period of 11.5 years. Because if you take the number 11.5 and multiply it, if you just add 11.5 to 11.5 to 11.5 to 11.5, you'll get an even perfect 138 after a while. So I'm like, okay. He says the sun was yellow when we were kids, Jason. It was yellow. It's almost white now. He said, what if the sun is some type of battery projector that's producing all this phenomena that we experience? You can't look into a projector. It'll hurt your eyes.
Yep.
He said, what if every 138 years the system has to reboot and the sun isn't blocked by anything, it just goes out. When it goes out, when a battery, anytime you get an old battery and it goes out, look, it's got red sludge everywhere. Batteries exude this red sludge and this red powder. When a battery explodes, it exudes red powder.
Mm.
I'm like, I'm listening.
Yeah,
I'm
this
listening
is
to
fucking
Martin.
blowing my mind right now.
So I'm listening to Martin. Oh, I'm like, he's totally reinterpreting the whole Phoenix phenomenon for me. It's blowing my mind. So I'm listening to him, and he even did a video on his own channel. Excuse me. I'm talking too much. So he did a video on his own channel where he was identifying the sun as a fasci, and it's pretty compelling. And so I'm looking at this now. This is very interesting to me because the Phoenix phenomenon never involves the moon blocking the sun. In most of the historical accounts we have of the sun going dark, when it goes dark, the moon turns blood red. So I think Martin's onto something. I think we've been looking at this wrong. There's no intruder planets, and there's no eclipse of the sun. That shit's not happening. Something's happening to the sun itself, and when it does, it literally explodes this powder all over the world. So that's where we're at right now. And the reason the change in the color of the sun is because we're only 16.5 years away from a system reboot.
Yeah. Think about when a light bulb, if you do the old regular style light bulbs 20 years ago, when they would go out or when they would pop, they would grow really bright and white, and then they would pop. Light bulb. So if you're saying that like the sun used to be, I have this, a lot of people say this, the sun used to be really yellow and now it's more white. And so you take that correlation into a light bulb, and that's what a light bulb does when it goes out. The old style filament light bulbs is that it would increase in radiance, and it would pop. So
I want to address Clay's Pigeon. Clay's Pigeon has been on my channel for a long time. He's probably been on a bunch of people's channels. But he says right here, the War of the Worlds movie, when all people were freaking out in fear, they all got turned to red dust. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, hold on. I'm going to go deeper than that. In the 1980s, one of my favorite movies as a kid was Night of the Comet.
Oh, yeah.
In these kids were playing in an underground World War II bunker that had been turned into a movie theater. So they were safe when the strange object passed through the sky. everybody who was outside trying to watch the comet, what they were calling a comet, turned to red dust. All their clothes and jewelry were found on the ground, but all of New York City was buried in this red dust that used to be people. In 1902 and 1764, this is when there was mass disappearances of people, and then we have these whole weird narratives of Cabbage Patch Kids and orphan trains and insane asylums filling up with people whose mind had fractured. What had just happened that caused so many people to lose their mind? I mean, it's all very compelling, man. That's all very compelling.
Well, even the show, if you're a fan of the 100 it was originally on the CW, it's on Netflix. I'm watching it for the third time again, just bits and pieces. I think it's in season 6 that the sun goes red and it causes people to go insane.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what stood out for me when you were saying about that red, and the battery and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, the word battery is 19. The sun card in the tarot is the 19th card in the deck. I mean, how much more evidence do we need here that the sun's a damn battery? You know, Jordan, what's your take on it, man?
Well, it's making me think because one of my favorite places is Utah, and lots of Utah is just looking like an alien world, you know? And I've thought for a while that whatever happened in the last cataclysm must have been something that created an event there. Perhaps what we see when we look at like Zion National Park, Arches, Bryce Canyon, those could have very well been sophisticated, highly technologically advanced cities. And there was some sort of event that just absolutely, you know, well, you can see the pictures and look at it, what it looks like today. Use your imagination. So I've thought that that's just very odd that that land looks like that and it's only really there. You know, you could go and find that in that particular region, and then once you start leaving that area, you don't see that anymore. You don't see that sort of dust. So I wonder, it's always been something on my mind because I love going there. I love camping and hiking out in that part of the country. So maybe Jason has something he could share very quickly that aligns with that.
Well, you're talking about the Utah area, the western part of the northwestern United States?
Right, and then like northern Arizona.
Yeah, well, the entire area from West Texas, it starts at West Texas. Once you leave West Texas and you cross over into New Mexico, the topography doesn't change much. It takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours. All of a sudden, going on I-40 or I-10, New Mexico turns into a totally different terrain. It is tortured, it is broken up, it has got these escarpments and weird outcrops of rock that just don't make any sense. It looks like something just literally just broke apart that whole part of the world from New Mexico going all the way into Arizona. I mean, there's some researchers out now saying the Grand Canyon is not old at all, because other canyons in the world, the bottom of, because of thousands of years of earthquakes, have been filled with boulders and other detritus. But the Grand Canyon is free of all that. It's almost as if it's only a few centuries old. And there's people that have presented evidence, like Static in the Attic and others, who have shown maps that were before the 1600s that show a very different North America with a large body of water right there in that area. And this is what I filmed. Passing through that twice in the past year, I filmed that whole area and then did videos on the church word books on Mu and Lemuria. I did some videos on that from hotel rooms, and I used the footage that I took to show people how tortured this landscape is. It looks just like I was driving through a ocean bed, and it wasn't very long ago when the water was here. So, yeah, I agree with you. It's something terrible. Something did happen. I believe it was quite recent. I've seen the maps from the 1500s. They don't look like the maps after 1626. I specify 1626 because that is a Phoenix year. That's the year that these great changes would have happened. But it was before anybody was even out there but a few Spanish colonies far, in the San Francisco area and on the West Coast. The interior of the United States was totally empty around that period of time. Even a lot of the Native American tribes weren't even in that area. They were all on the outskirts of that area. A lot of them toward Texas, a lot of them towards southern New Mexico, southern Arizona. But that whole area looks like a bowl on a map, and that's exactly where old maps that Static has shown show a body of water. So, and in these same old maps, there's no Great Lakes. There's no bodies of water in the Great Lakes areas. But after the 1600s, that body of water is gone, and now we have Great Lakes. So I don't know. It's all very interesting.
That is interesting. When I used to live for a couple of years, I lived in Las Vegas. Great place to live if you don't mind the heat. And I would, never go out to go party. I would go in nature. I lived out by Red Rock Canyon, and it's amazing hiking out there. And one day when I was out there observing the canyons, you could clearly see that at one point in time, the whole thing was underwater. You can see the lines on the rocks where the water would be at its resting point. You could clearly see that it was underwater, and you're like in this big aquarium, this big fishbowl, with all that. It was really, really, really kind of fascinating. Just kind of looking at the topography there in Las Vegas. So, all right. So shifting gears, let's get into another topic, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on, and hopefully you know about this area here, but there's a lot of referencing points to. And Jordan, you've been up to Iceland, Greenland, that area, but there's a place specifically called Ancient Thule. And in the old maps, Jason, you probably have more information on this than anybody here. The ancient maps say that was the farthest point that you could go, and then that would obviously allude to perhaps being tied to the tree and the North Pole, and perhaps the place that's guarded where you can't get to anymore, and maybe, just maybe, where the gods reside, so to speak. So I'd love to get your guys' take on Ancient Thule. I want to just tell everybody here, before I give you guys the floor, that the United States Air Force has an Air Force base up there, and just recently, I think within the past couple of years, they have now made this Air Force base Space Force location. And I think there's something massive to this, but I'd love to get your thoughts on that, you guys. Jordan, go ahead, bro. What's your take on Ancient Thule?
I've actually never heard of this. I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I haven't. Yeah. I would. Yeah. Great.
Okay. Well, you've been up there.
Great to know. I've been to Iceland many times.
Yeah, you have.
But I've never heard of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there many times.
Well, I would love for you to research it.
Island.
Yeah, I would love for you to research it. Give me your take on it in your off time. Being that it was the most northernest point, and I think the town. This is weird town name that I can't even pronounce. It's like a whole bunch of A's or something, one after another. But that's the farthest north Air Force base you can go. Now you're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, you're talking about going way up where it's super freaking cold, which I'm not a fan of at all. And yeah, I think that the secrets are held in those areas, not anywhere warm. It's going to be something very super cold. Jason, what's your take on that? Bashirs, what do you got on that, man?
I mean, just what's in common knowledge in academia, Thule. I just pulled up a map. I have a map of Teal. It's T-I-L-E. I understand that you spelled it Thule.
Yeah,
that's the modern spelling. On the old maps, like I got an old map on my screen right now. It's called T-I-L-E.
T-I-L-E. Okay.
Yeah, T-I-L-E. It's the oldest rendering, but I mean, it first came into the South. When I'm talking about the South, I'm talking about the Mediterranean world. It first came into their knowledge during the days of Alexander of Macedon. But we don't know anything outside one single reference in an old Greek book written by a dude named Pythias. I think his name is Pyrrhias or Pythias, but we don't have anything. And his book is full of fantastic stuff like the Hyperboreans and the Temple of the Hyperboreans that were far north. And he seemed to confirm a lot of things that Pausanias said about the north. And there was probably talking about Stonehenge in the British area and all that. But there's no country or kingdom or anything that's ever really been called Thule. It's been rumored to be Greenland. It's been rumored to be an island that's no longer there, Ballina, that was off the coast of Albion, which is ancient Britain. But yeah, it's the oldest rendering is T-I-L-E.
T-I-L. But it was, the point is, it's way the hell up there, and
yeah,
it's
far north.
It's yeah, really far north, and it's kind of an area where you're like, who the hell's going to trek up there, really? I mean, you got to have some, I mean, that's not my cup of tea, man. I go in shorts and a tank top. But that kind of, you know, let's talk about, how about the pole shift? Like, this was a big thing for me many years ago. I mean, it's still kind of interesting to kind of talk about. But the one thing specifically, I have one of my really best friends, he's got his PhD. He's one of the smartest guys I know, like you two guys. And I have great conversations with him. And one day we were talking about the seed vault, and the placement of the seed vault way the hell out there in no man's land. Now, obviously, it's very cold, and it would be able to, you know, to keep these seeds on ice and protect them, and et cetera, et cetera. But I'd love to get your guys' take on why that placement of the seed vault is up in that area. And I'll give all of you guys and gals and everybody listening of why I'm bringing this up, because we were talking about the pole shift, and my best friend, he told me, he's like, he thinks that the equator running, you know, the equator, if you can imagine in your mind running east to west, it's going to flip, it's going to shift. And when it does, it's going to turn everything clockwise. All the continents will turn clockwise, and the equator will be very, very close to that seed vault. And when that happens, obviously there'd be a lot of thawing out, but that'd be the perfect climate to start planting seeds to start back over again. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on that. Jordan, go ahead. You can start off with this, man. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, this is making me think a lot about Wernher von Braun and just what the National Socialists were doing back before the World War II times, during the World War II times, and then Operation Paperclip and all of that, which led to what we call NASA. And I believe that they were talking about a place, correct me on this if I'm wrong here, but it's called like New Schwabenland. And allegedly, it was past a very cold area, like it past what would be like an Arctic tundra, but then it was like tropical. So I mean, there's a lot going into why they would hide certain things in certain areas. And I think it's as simple as, well, that's the way you control the world. You know, you create all these agencies and military and navy, etc., and make it so that people can't have a full extent of our mobility. But getting into the concept of pole shift or crust displacement theory or any of the other things that are in alignment with that, I do feel that there is some sort of timing to this, and there is a predictability in a sense, and I do think it's happened before, but I'm just not entirely sure if it's natural or if it's something that's triggered by technology or, you know, I mean, I've come across a theory that Egypt and a lot of this area of northern Africa, which is pretty much a desert, well, it was once lush and green, and there's plenty of old maps to go back into to prove this. I know Jason brought up Martin before from Flat Earth British, and I've done maybe 2 or 3 podcasts with him, so shout out to Martin. It's great to connect with him. He's somebody that is really educated and knowledgeable on this. But I've seen plenty of maps that show there was lush green Africa, you know, and the theory or the conspiracy kind of concept here is that perhaps the creation of the pyramids were what sucked all of the water out of the land and then converted it into this oil. Now, I don't know really a way of proving this, but it was something that I heard, and like many of us that are interested in this sort of stuff, you go, whoa, that's pretty interesting. You know, that's a cool way of looking at it. And of course, that area of the world is very oil, you know, rich. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not entirely sure if that was the cause of it. Of course, the pyramids are one of the greatest, you know, conversations that all minds and all peoples are interested in and have their own theories on. But that was one theory that really made me go like within and say, wow, you know, this is mind-blowing concept to think about. And perhaps there could be many other things that happen like this in particular areas, and then we want to call it natural, or we want to call it something that has some sort of natural cyclicality to it, like a grand solar minimum kind of concept. You feel me? So I don't know. Like, I mean, we could talk about all these theories and we could think about it, but for me, I'm leaning more in that lane of there's probably some sort of technological experiment that goes down, and in a particular region we have some shit that, you know, changes the world as we know it, and then that's what gets passed on as either the verbal tradition of what occurred, or it gets told to us in a very butchered way through what we call history.
Yeah.
But I'm not entirely sold on this idea of pole shift as it's popularly spoken of.
Yeah. Well,
but I do kind of look at like these shows like Stranger Things, like opening up portals and CERN and all that shit. That's real stuff, you know? Like that is, I think, a lot more believable that we could have some shit that happens that we're creating, like we're causing through trying to alter the, you know, these other dimensions. But anyways, what are your thoughts, Logan?
Well, I think that if there was a pole shift, I think the safest place to actually be in is in a rich woman's walk-in closet. That's where I'm going to probably be. If something, you know, if the shit hits the fan, I'm going to be in I'm going to go to a very big house, and I'm going to go in the woman's closet. I'm going to hang out there. Look for tags. Look for blouses that still have tags on it. Jason, what's your take on that?
Go ahead, Jordan.
Well, I wanted to talk, Jason. I wanted to ask you on the pole shift and the seed vault and the location of that. What's your take on that? Like, what do you think it's strategically placed there? Do you have any information on that? The latitude, you know, like the location. What's your take on that?
Well, first of all, I am absolutely on board with the stellosphere simulating a pole shift event. And what I mean is I am coming from the position of someone who believes that the world that I am on is a realm and that it's not moving around a star 93 million miles away. And I believe that all motion that we see in the sky is holographic. Therefore, it makes me believe I'm enduring a pole shift. And the phenomena can also change the consistency of substances and materials in the world that I'm in, because it's all holographic, to make me believe, even when I search harder, that such a pole shift did in fact happen. So, case in point, the magnetite signatures that have been found by geologists all around the world has them convinced that there has been a 30 degree shift in the surface of our world, which is really interesting because the obliquity of the world right now is according to astronomy, we are tilted from our axis at 23.5 degrees obliquity, and it may have something to do with this pole shift. Further, we have traditional evidence that the Great Pyramid used to be 0 degrees longitude, 0 degrees latitude of an entirely different grid and ley line system in the pre-flood world. And it was by virtue of a pole shift that it is now 30 degrees north latitude. So, like I said, I'm a simulationist. So I believe all this phenomena happens to induce us to think that we're in a world. It has to be believable. But I do not believe that pole shifts are necessary for the systemic geographical changes that we see around the world. So, you know, I'm really heavy into vapor canopy techniques.
Yep.
And that I have done several videos citing the 5 major scientific books about vapor canopy, and I kind of brought that back to the attention of YouTube. Vapor canopy has been real popular now, but it's not something I invented. This comes from five different scientific books that I've done videos about, where scientists are on board with the fact that the anomalies that have been discovered in the archaeological record are perfectly explained by the fact that we have these periodic vapor canopies, and that when a vapor canopy collapses, that's when we get this 2-mile high ice pack, which you cannot get today because there's no humidity in the Arctic or in the Antarctic. And humidity is required for snowfall. So it's always been a quandary, and that's why right now, on record, the scientific community has over 60 different ice age theories. Because every time they come out with a new theory, other scientists come to the table and say, well, that can't be true because of this. So they have to modify the theory. They have the new ice age theory. The real problem is there was no ice ages. It's vapor canopy collapse. At the extremities, the coolest parts of our world are away from the equatorial zone. So the equatorial zone stays habitable with life forms. There's plenty of food. People concentrate there. It's also the pyramid belt. It's also where all the ancient civilizations were on. So there were none far to the south, and there were none far to the north, because they weren't habitable after a collapse of the vapor canopy, because they were too cold and they were packed with ice. But the fact that this wasn't something that happened 10,000 years ago is absolutely provable. We have 5, maybe 6. You'll have to ask Martin, but I know of 5 different maps. Even the person I can't stand talks about this, and he's right, Graham Hancock. We have 5 different maps that show Antarctica, South America, Greenland, Iceland with no snow and ice. Shows the correct displacement of mountains and rivers and different topographical features like coastlines, and they're accurate. Charles Hapgood, in Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings, he opened up a can of worms because it started a bunch of research that never died. People started pulling old maps out and come to find out, damn, there's been times where, like Jordan said, Africa's been covered in jungles, covered in forests. There was no Sahara Desert there. So we have all these old maps that show these different biospheres. That's what's happening. Yeah. The collapse of these periodic. First of all, let's remove the mystery. One single volcano in 1883 created a dust veil around the entire world that lasted for months. Can you imagine what 50 volcanoes would do on land? Shoving ash into the lower mesosphere, it would block out the sun. It would create a greenhouse effect. Then add another 50 volcanoes that are doing the same thing, but deep under the ocean. Now this immense amount of ash and moisture is being spewed into the atmosphere. It wouldn't take but a few months to create a vapor canopy. The vapor canopy there, increase in atmospheric pressure. The ambient radiation from so many volcanoes going off, we already know. Scientists in 1902 realized that radiation that comes from volcanoes makes beetles and earthworms and humans grow way bigger than we're used to.
Yeah, that's that's super interesting, man. People getting bigger, and how we've, like, you have this movie Downsizing, Matt Damon being in that, Matt Damon being in the Adjustment Bureau in that movie. It's just really fascinating, these actors in these storylines, and this whole downsizing, getting small. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I've done this. I've talked about this, and from the giants, the vapor canopy, et cetera, going down, getting smaller, and the displacement of the geography of our land. You know, like, hey, if Mexico gets cold, man, you can bet your ass I'm out of here, man. If I got to go to North Dakota and live, if it's warm there, I'm going to North Dakota. I don't like the cold, right? If it's going to get cold here, forget it. I'm out of here. I'm kicking stones. Let's talk about Admiral Byrd. I have a lot of people that have sent me information on other lands beyond the ice wall. And I think, Jason, I think you'd be very qualified to start this conversation off. These other lands, these, like there's a land for everything. Jeez, Louise, what's your take on that? What does your research lead to? He said he went to the underworld. He went down. What's your take on that? Like, do you think there's any significance or any kind of merit to his testimony and these layers that are coming out that have been shown?
Well, I've left Admiral Byrd out of all my research.
Is that right? Okay.
I've left him out because I don't believe I'm qualified to talk about Admiral Byrd, because so many different YouTube channels, BitChute channels, or so many documentaries, Netflix, everybody's talking about Admiral Byrd, and there's nothing new. I mean, I research old books, and the only thing that could possibly be out there about Admiral Byrd would be a new book. I mean, any books that are within the last 100 years to me are new. My whole library is full of books from the 1800s, and I'm starting to build up a sizable collection of books from the 1700s. But what I'm saying is there's nothing new I can bring to the table when it comes to Admiral Byrd. So I defer to other people. Okay. But what I can do is I can direct you to Brinsley Le Poer Trench, a French author who wrote a book called Secret of the Ages, where he gives an account from 1895 of an explorer who ran into some Inuit Eskimos, and they escorted him far to the north, and he paid them and their families, and they decided to go to a certain point where they finally told him at the North Pole. They finally told him, thank you. They told him we can't go any further.
And yeah, you were saying this. I remember. Yeah, go ahead. This is good.
Yeah, he said we can't go any further, and he said, well, why? It's starting to get warm. It's not even cold up here, and it was blowing his mind because 2 days earlier, he and the Eskimos had passed over fox trails that had no snow. He was on open dirt. He was no longer on the ice pack. And it had blown his mind because he thought it was going to get colder and colder and colder the closer he got to the North Pole. So it's all in this book, Secret of the Ages, from Brinsley Le Pure Court French. And he says that they got terrified because he says the fathers, their ancestors, were told that this was home. But something happened in ancient times and they had been banished. But they had been promised that there was going to be coming a time when they would be called back. But until that time, they had to stay away. So they panicked and left. And he did some more searching, and he ended up leaving too. But not before reporting he had come across greenery and mammalian life forms that are not supposed to exist at the North Pole. So we have that account, and it's pretty compelling. It's got some stuff in it. But let me answer your original question. I kind of went off on the tangents about vapor canopy and about the magnetite signatures and volcanic rock and all that. But to answer your question, man, fully about the pole shift, and I believe it's all simulated, but even a simulation can feel real. I mean, I can strike a match and burn myself right now. It doesn't mean it's any less real. I mean, I'm jacked in by virtue of the central nervous system, so of course it's going to feel real to me, even though it's all virtual reality of nothing but oscillating fields that, when magnified, are not even touching each other. Just like the stars, when you magnify them, they're oscillating fields, just like Jordan said, and they're not touching each other. It's the macrocosm and the microcosm are identical. We are in between. We are spirit. But it doesn't mean that all this doesn't feel real, because it does. And when it comes to pole shift, which is simulated, it's still, that does not, just because it's simulated does not mean we won't move 30 degrees. Just like there's a 30-degree shift known to geology. That is the number geologists have put out there. Now, geologists are uniformitarians, so they claim that it took millions of years for that to get that 30 degrees. That's what explains the magnetite signatures, but that's bullshit. I'm not a uniformitarian. I'm a catastrophist, because that's where the evidence is. The evidence is the world has been destroyed multiple times. And if we have historical records that say that the sun has deviated from its course 4 different times in world history, then I'm going to believe those records. The ancients had no business recording those facts in their regnal lists and their king lists, on their monuments and the date stelae. They had no business doing that. They weren't imaginative like we were. They were recording the facts. And when they were talking about the sun, and if it moved erratically, and if 2 different hemispheres provided the same records, like I document in Chronicon, then it's something we need to pay attention to. Then it means scientists today are full of shit, because our ancestors said it did happen. So, taking all this into consideration, I believe in 2040, in the next Phoenix phenomenon event, I believe that all of North America is going southward 30 degrees, while Australia and China are going northward 30 degrees. And the center of motion is going to be Egypt, where the Great Pyramid is. It's going to be the area, it's going to be like the pivot.
That's going to go to the seed vault again. That's going to go back to the Sfad God seed vault.
Yeah, so when this happens, when the vapor canopy comes back with this pole shift, what's going to happen? All that ice pack is going to disappear fast. Where's it going? It's not going in the ocean. It's going right back into the sky where it came from. And it's going to literally blanket the atmosphere. It's called the mesosphere. It's there today. It's just not thick. But it's going to thicken up. And the one thing that creates atmosphere is volcanoes.
Well, they're erupting like crazy, right? Jordan, what's your take on that, man? You got any thoughts on that? I have another topic I want to talk about. Jordan, what's your take on it, Jordan?
Yeah, I think I kind of covered this a little bit ago when we were talking about the Abendland and kind of a land beyond and the reasoning for discovering that, and perhaps, this aligns with all of that. Kind of there must be some sort of neutral zone that they're aware of. And what I personally believe is the most neutral zone for the stewards of this realm would be underground. That
Yeah.
seems to be the most sophisticated and
Yes.
advanced area that exists. So that's where I'm a little more interested.
Yeah.
Like these underground systems I'm aware are much more sophisticated than the above ground that
Yep.
we're accessing.
Yep.
So perhaps that's another lane for the conversation. But yeah, I think you guys covered all of this, and incredibly thought-provoking ideas. But it's the underground that really fascinates me a lot.
Yeah, well, you know what, dude? As fate would have it, that was my next topic that I wanted to bring up and discuss was the underground, the underworld. And I've been talking about this a little bit with my audience. Maybe you guys have as well. And I just find this so fascinating. Now, you guys know, Jason and Jordan and a lot of my viewers here, you guys know I believe in predestination. I believe in a predestined script. It's already written out. There may be some choices, options, but there's no possibilities in the way that we move as human beings. With that being said, isn't it fascinating that I don't know how long we can go back. Jason, you'd have more knowledge on this, but it's like the metals that are that are under the ground that we have been digging up to make cell phones, to make machinery, to make cars, transportation. It was placed there. Somehow, some way, this metal, from niobium to titanium to rhodium, whatever, has been under the ground. And we as human beings have been digging it up. And then we take it and we transform it into something that we can use as something that progresses us forward. I would love to get your guys' take on this, because it's just, to me, this is a fascinating topic. And Jason, like, this stuff that we've been digging up, man, how far back can we go with this, man, from your history and your research? Do you have any kind of tidbits on this?
Well, strictly as a chronologist, I do not entertain anything before the year 5239 BC. 5239 BC is the perimeter of my research. Anything before that is pure speculation. We don't have any chronographical material from anywhere in the
1539, right?
No, 5239.
Oh, 5239. Sorry. Okay.
Yes, that's as far back as I can go. That is the beginning of the Sumerian. It's called the Anunanur chronology. It's a great year periodicity of 600 years, and then it goes into the Phoenix phenomenon. And as you know, it goes into the Annus Mundi, and then all these calendars begin. All these calendars begin major protocols that begin governing humanity all through. But 5239 BC as far as I can go. But that's chronologically. We have some really compelling archaeology we can discuss right now, such as the fact that some of you in your free time, if when you want to go actually go look at pictures and read some very, very enigmatic discoveries, there's Jonathan Gray is a researcher that I admire. He's got a book called Dead Men Don't Talk, and I believe his book is free. But he's got a very interesting website called beforeus.com. On this website, you're going to see archaeological artifacts that they don't make any sense. It's amazing stuff. But he focuses on a lot of the things that William Portis and Charles Ford and others focused on, which was coal seams. We use coal as a fossil fuel today. To burn many things. The coal industry is still going strong in the world today.
Yep.
But we have from old periodicals like Scientific American in the 1800s, the Smithsonian in the 1800s. We have Popular Science from the 1800s, and we have different gazettes like the Phoenix Gazette. We have all these different gazettes from the 1800s, and they are packed full of articles of old women, old men, young girls breaking their poles of lump into lumps so they can fit them in the furnace, because coal was purchased from farm feed stores back then, and you had to wagon it home. And when you got home, you had to take a hammer and you had to break the coal because it came in boulders. You had to break the coal down, and so it would fit into the small little door on your furnace or on your stove. We have hundreds of accounts of people breaking the coal open and finding silver brooches, what look like ancient watches, golden bells. Looks like sometimes cast iron utensils, little bitty copper and bronze figurines. Over and over and over, coal deposits have produced porcelain, amphorae, different baubles, and just different things from the ancient world, almost perfectly preserved. Some of them inlaid with amazing braided silver work, braided into gold, all kinds of cutlery. Why?
Yeah.
How did that happen? How did the coal seams buried under mountains get packed with utensils from everyday kitchens in the ancient world?
Yeah,
how did that happen?
Yeah. Well, that's just like your that's regurgitation, right? Think about, Jordan, what's your take on that? Like, just like these metals in the ground, and we're taking them and transforming them into something that we can use as a society and a species. And of course, this is going towards the age of Aquarius and the age of the computer, right? So like, what placed this shit in the ground? That's the big question. Jordan, go ahead, man. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we touched on this a little bit last time, and you both chimed in with a lot of stuff. And to be completely honest, I'm not even sure what I could add here. Like, whatever this realm is, I think the mythology explains it best. So when we start getting into the below world, going back into Hades and Pluto, and going really taking it back to Osiris, it's pretty wild how we got this Matrix movie and this ruler of that underground being the Merovingian.
Yep.
And we know that Merovingian has to be Hades or Pluto, because his wife, who is played by Monica Bellucci, I believe her name is, she's called Persephone, right? So we have the mythology right there in front of our faces. And the main, kind of purpose of this Merovingian character is to protect this underworld, but also he's hoarding this keymaker guy, and he's kind of holding the keymaker back and slaving this player character, this archetype. And you can see how crucial that keymaker is in this whole construct that we call reality. So I feel like that was probably the most intriguing piece to all of this, because keys are made of metal, obviously. The key in a more anatomical perspective is the phallus. This goes back directly to Osiris. The phallus of Osiris is this obelisk we see, which is like the biggest flex of the New World Order around this world. Just a big dick. And above the Vesica Pisces, again, female anatomy. Yeah. So this is where my mind triggers with all of these things. Like, I always bring it back to the mythology and I try to take it from there. And that movie, The Matrix, really revealed so much with that player character, the Merovingian. And I'm sure a lot of people here know that the Merovingian is considered to be the 13th royal bloodline in the Illuminati, but I don't care about that shit. I just find that connection between that character being French, and that must directly be tied to the Knights Templar and that whole story going back to the confiscation of all the wealth from Babylonia. Well, we could go many directions with this, but I feel like that's probably the big takeaway here, talking about the Pluto character, the Hades character being the god of real wealth, coming back to precious metals and all of that, and how that's being slowly taken away from the conversation, and it's all being digitized. Yep. And what we believe is valuable today will be slowly moving into like things like NFTs. That's what the world will be deeming valuable in the next 10 years. And people that follow my work, they're hip on this. They're savvy enough to see it, that blockchain is the future economy. And this is very Aquarian. I know me and you have talked about this quite a bit. And the whole process of belief towards currency is altering, it's changing, and that's probably a necessity for what we're talking about right now. Like, how do we transition into a world where we could be seeing land liquefaction, lots of plasma discharges, these volcanic eruptions, etc., earthquakes. Obviously, the earthquakes lead to more land liquefaction.
Yeah.
And then we have this pole shift concept kind of as part of what you guys have been discussing. I mean, yeah, like it's going to make it so that the mining of metals and the mining of this type of stuff is really quite difficult. And if anything, it'll be a very dangerous job. So that's probably the big motivator why they're moving us quantum, like into a more blockchain reality, because, well, first of all, they know which areas are going to be the worst places to be, and they know which are the most ideal. I remember one of our last conversations, we talked about Ashgabat.
Yep.
In Turkmenistan. That's probably a neutral zone. So they are flaunting all of these Solomon stars, all of these symbols right in front of our face, lots of gold ornamentation and all that jazz. So yeah, I mean, these are plenty of thoughts to chew on. What do you feel about some of this stuff? What's your take on it, Logan?
On the metals under the ground? Yeah, I mean, I just am really enamored by it, because I sat there one day, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, man, first and foremost, what the hell placed all this metal under the ground? How did it get there? Why was it placed there? I'm all about strategy when I look at reality. Every single one of you listening to this podcast, you create a strategy in your life. And it's just a big Mandelbrot set. The Mandelbrot set, meaning you can go all the way down to the microcosm and look under a microscope, look underwater, and you're going to see predator prey. And you come all the way back up to zero magnification, and now you're at the three-dimensional space, and you're going to see predator prey here. And then you can go up a level into the heavenly spheres and talk about the mythology and the gods, and you're going to get a Mandelbrot set. And I think that's just really what it's all about. It's never ending. It's limitless. It goes up and down, up, left, right, sideways. But the thing about it is like, what created this metal in this three-dimensional reality in Earth? Why was it placed there? And now why are we as human beings taking it from the Earth and conforming it and converting it and transmuting it into something such as computers? I mean, right now we already have, and we could probably lead this into another really cool conversation, but right now we already have quantum computers. We've taken the metal out of and how did they get created? They're not fabricating this shit out of 3D printers. No, they've harvested from the Earth. They've taken it from the Earth, Gaia. They've pulled the metal out of Gaia, and they've now transformed it into what we call a quantum computer. That would be the logical explanation I would give, or the logical answer I would give. The cell phone you're using, the computer you're using right now, that was from Gaia. It was from the Earth, and that is what we're moving towards. You're relying on it. And ladies and gentlemen, just look at where we're going. I asked this question earlier. Where do you think our reality is going, our society is going as an age? You can bring astrology, yugas, etc. But if you really look at this, would you want to go backwards? Do you think, then we're having fun here, right? Do you think you could actually go back to using a pager again? Do you actually think you would go back to using a rotary phone on the wall with that long ass cord and do emergency breakthroughs when you want to get a hold of your girlfriend because you can't talk to her because there's a busy signal on the other end? Would you actually go back to AOL dial-up? When it takes like 10 minutes to freaking connect, and then it takes you 10 minutes to get to a website. Could you go back to that speed? The answer would be absolutely no. You would pull your hair out. You'd be bald in 2 weeks. The only thing that you're going to do is move forward into the future. And the future seemingly looks like an age of high technology. And this metal that we've taken from the ground, we've transformed it, and we're now utilizing it. And it seems like that is what we're moving towards for the future. I mean, you can get into I'm a fan of like Philip K. Is it interesting that Philip K. Dick, you guys, Jordan and Jason, you guys know who Philip K. Dick is. Philip K. Dick, the author who's getting massive recognition now, who wrote books like Minority Report with Tom Cruise, which talks about a society of a crime prevention unit where there's no crimes really anymore, because how would you prevent crimes? How could you possibly prevent crimes? You take all the astrology, numerology, the systems, the calendrical systems that Jason's talking about, all the things you can do, predictive programming, throw it in a computer and it would spit out a simulation. Now you'd have at your hands something where you could utilize and prevent crimes. This is what Philip K. Dick was talking about. That dude's birth card, he was born on December, 12th? He's got the same birth card as Elon Musk. The same damn birth card. The two of clubs, which is the futurist card, right? And so we bring into this like the metals underground, pulling them out of the ground, transforming them into computers and cell phones and digitize and machinery, transformers, all these movies. And it just looks that way, like the future of mankind is we're moving into machine. And if you're a fan of astrology, ladies and gentlemen, and this is just hypothetical for fun, I'm not doing predictions. But I'm saying is that through astrology and the lens of astrology, the age of Aquarius being the age of air and the age of I know thyself, even Jesus says, follow me into the house with a man bearing a pitcher of water. Even Jesus says, do that. You're moving into the age of Aquarius. The age of Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. You can go all the way back to ancient Sumeria, and they were in the land of which starts off with Uranus, the letter U and R. I mean, the history repeating itself is so freaking obvious. But the electrical age that we're moving into, an electrical age uses what? It uses metal. Metal is the conductor of electricity. So we now perhaps are moving into the age of Aquarius, which may, you're going to start, I think you're going to start to see, honestly, you're already seeing it now. You're going to start to see robotic body parts. It's already happening, folks. We're already seeing robotic body parts. I mean, what would you rather have? Would you rather have some, cheesy ass, leg, like a titanium leg, or would you rather have a robotic one? A prosthetic? Would you rather have just like a still prosthetic that you have to clamp on, or would you rather have one that you can move and you can feel it? You can actually have feeling and sensors. We're moving towards that. The advancement of technology is absolutely mind-blowing, from the scalar wave technology to the med beds to, there's so much you can see. We're moving from taking these metals under the earth, we're moving them into the physicality of our reality. And the age of Aquarius, to me, looks nothing like the age of Pisces. And Pisces, of course, representing the 2 feet, which represents man and flesh. You're getting rid of that. You're moving towards more machine. And maybe, just maybe, for 2,000 years or however long these ages last, you're going to be advancing into machine. And we're going to now get into this Philip K. Dick cyberpunk and why maybe Elon Musk is on the stage to do the Neuralink. And then you have the ending of that and moving into the age of Capricorn, which is the age of Earth, because Capricorn's an Earth sign. And maybe you have a Phoenix event there where you implode and the machine goes away. And this again, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to finish here, but this is where God lives through these ages where it's like a movie. You're in a movie, and this movie, as you're now moving into a machine, and it's a different movie. It's a different comic book, and that's exactly what it's planned for us. And that's, to me, that's why I had posed this question of harvesting these metals from the earth, pulling them up, making them into machine computers, and this black mirror called the cell phone, et cetera, et cetera. But that's my long ass answer. You guys have anything to add with that? Jason, you have been silent. Go ahead. What do you think?
I'm still smarting on that bald remark.
You what?
I'm still smarting on that bald remark.
Oh, okay.
Hey, listen, man, check it out. I didn't want to interrupt you, man, because you are on a roll.
I was on a tangent. Thank you for not interrupting me. I appreciate that.
Oh, man. Yeah, you were going off. You run over me anyway, so I'll leave you alone right when you're going off like that. But I do want to mention that, one of the books I studied a lot in the past for different reasons. One as a Christian, and then later because the book had such valuable information, was the Book of Enoch. And it always struck you, as soon as you asked Jordan about the metals, man, I remember this passage. So I went and looked it up just now to make sure that I wasn't about to misquote it. It's right here. Enoch, chapter 65. It specifically says, for lead and tin are not produced from the earth like the former. It's talking about different metals and stuff. He's talking to an angel. But I just that one statement, for lead and tin are not produced from the earth. How did they know that thousands of years ago?
Wow.
Lead is produced from the isotopic breakdown of uranium-238, plutonium-12, the different isotopes from radioactive metals break down until they have no more radioactivity, and that what's left is lead. So this statement from the Book of Enoch thousands of years ago is absolutely correct. Lead is not naturally produced from the earth. But tin, we already know tin's not naturally produced. It's an alloy. You got to make tin.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was interesting. I'll throw that out.
Wow, that's good shit, man, right there. Yeah, because uranium decays down into lead. That's what 238 goes down into 207, 208 lead.
So fire. So what Logan literally just said leads perfectly into mythology. So Silas or Uranus is the father of Saturn. Saturn associated with lead. Logan, re-say what you just said.
Uranium, the father, which is heaven, decays down into lead. 207, 208.
There you go.
Yep.
So again, Uranus becomes Saturn, and then Saturn gives Saturn's child is Jupiter ruling tin, or Jupiter tied to tin. Yep. So this is just the mythological story all over again. And we know that this is the same battle that we see of light and darkness in every Hollywood movie. This is Luke Skywalker and Anakin. It's the same story over and over. The defeat of Saturn from his child, Jupiter, the king of the gods. So I love mythology so much, and it really changed my life. And when you start adding in all these other layers, and wow, like we just in that small little sequence, all three of us had a different kind of, outlook of something borrowed from something else that we researched, and it all just came together right there. Mind blown.
Yeah. Good stuff with the Tin Man is, I've been with my research at the Wizard of Oz, it's the Tin Man, and the Tin Man was the main standout character because he was looking for his heart. Tin is tied to Jupiter. It's tied to the number 50. There's that 5 with the 0 behind it, which means infinite potential. And that's the whole story of my research. The way I look at this reality is that the story of Wizard of Oz and the Tin Man looking for his heart. It's spirit coming down here to play the game. It incarnates into an avatar, our body, and then the mind of you is the spirit of God. And it literally starts to go around and say, okay, what am I going to create? Who am I going to go hump? Who am I going to go have sex with? Who am I going to go lust after? Who am I going to go, create a business with? It's all the good, the bad, and the ugly. And this game survives off of that, the peace and calamity, the good and evil. And I just find it I just find it fun, man. I think the important thing to do here as a fan of life is to turn off the things in your life that cause you distress and disharmony. But that's a tall order because I think a lot of people are addicted to that kind of shit. Like a heroin addict injecting a needle in their arm. People love fear. They love it. They love turning on the news, and they love getting their fix from the news. They love getting their fix from politics. They love getting their fix from going to their social media and engaging and just being a total asshole and I'm going to be right. It's like, that's the whole basis of reality, ladies and gentlemen, is you think you're right. And anything outside of your beliefs, if you thinking you're right, it's wrong. And if when you start to really get your ego pulled in and you start to go down to the depths of hell and pull out your Mars card, as I like to say, you're gonna try to be right, and you're gonna try to prove everybody else wrong. That's what it means to be a human being. Thank you, Werner Erhard. You think you're right, and everybody else is wrong. See, when you get good at this game, you'll realize that everybody's right, and that right there is a big game changer, because when you can adopt that as a belief, it's like what Jordan had said a long time ago. Love is allowing. And for many of you in here, and if you're being authentic, I'm not pointing fingers. You know who you are. You're not doing that. You're not allowing other people to speak their opinions. You're not allowing people to say what their truths are because you think your truths are the only truths and you won't accept anybody else. You won't at least be neutral to their truths. And I think that we need to collaborate and come together. And this is why I love this podcast, because we have, us three that, if we laid all our truths out, Jordan, Jason, and myself, we know they're not going to match up. But you know what's so beautiful about this right here, this collaboration is? I'm totally cool. Like, your truth's cool. Like, I love both of you guys, and I've got to meet both of you guys in person. And to me, I'm grateful for that. And for that matter, that's what makes this podcast that much more special. So I'm going to yield to somebody else because I've been going off. So Jason, come on in, man.
Well, I just said, hey man, brother. Say, we had a great time in San Diego. It was awesome.
Yeah, we ain't doing another one.
100%. It's all about perspective, man. You know what? In the end, we all drink coffee out the same cup.
Yeah, your mic's a little low, bro.
Oh, my mic was behind. I had it turned up. I'm sorry.
There you go. There you go. Well, hey, by the way, just not to put you on the spot, it doesn't matter. But when's the next errant event? Do you have anything that we can come to? People are chomping at. And, okay, yeah. Before you answer that question, I'm going to throw this out to a big shout out to all of you. Got over 1,000 people in here. Listen, I'm going on tour next year. That's my goal personally for me, and I want to take a lot of you with me. But the question is here. Where do you want us to go live at? Like, and if you want to, you can send me I know I'm going to get bombarded with emails. That's totally fine. But send me an email, but just put your city. That's it. Let's get a poll going. Like, what city do you want us to go to? And you could just send me an email. My email's decodeyourreality@gmail.com. Don't send me a long paragraph about this and that. Just what city you want to go to. You can put it in the heading of the email. And I think that would be kind of cool because I want audience. I think audience participation is great. But Jason, what do you got planned, man?
All right. Well, there's two things going on. One, in the spring, we're going to go light Florida up. We're going to have a huge meetup in Florida because we have not been anywhere in that part of the United States yet. I've done like 6 meetups, but we haven't been there. So I'm going to Florida. But at the same time, I'm about to start something new because what we did was very successful. And anybody's welcome. I mean, some people can fly in from other states or travel, whatever. But we're about to start doing the Houston Knights of the Round Table on a regular basis. Because what we did after San Diego, Martin Leakey and I, and Autodidactic and Max Egan, we did a round table in Houston in that same room that I did a meetup for about 6 months earlier, or 4 months earlier. And what we did is we made 2 rows of a circle of 2 rows of chairs. And people came in, and then they realized we explained to them, when we advertised the Knights of the Round Table, we weren't talking about us. We were talking about everybody who came to participate. And they really responded to that. And man, the 8 hours went so fast when we were just talking to everybody. Everybody was equal in the circle. Some people asked Max Egan questions. Some people listened to Martin and asked Martin questions. Some people talked to me. We all had different turns, but the people who came to the Knights of the Round Table event all sat in the circle, and we all just got to know each other better, bounce off ideas, and I learned a lot about my community from that event. And I learned that I'm going to be doing that about at least 3 times a year right there in Houston, in between doing meetups in other states.
Well, that's beautiful. I mean, that's beautiful. And I want to do one where we have a big gathering and we have it all dialed in, the sounds dialed in, we go live, et cetera. Just kind of like how you did it in San Diego. That's great. Jordan, okay, so I'm going to put Jordan on the spot. So one day he's got to come out of hiding. I don't know if he's ever going to, but I think it's a possibility. Maybe I can invite you to this women's walk-in closet. You can reveal yourself there.
How about this? I'll do a meetup with you guys if we all go to Ashgabat.
Oh, damn. It's got to be Ashgabat, huh? I'm down for that.
We got to meet at the United Nations headquarters.
Dude, I'm totally down for that, man. Well, Jason, what do you think? Ashgabat?
I hate New York City. That's where it's at, isn't it?
No, he's talking about
it's in Turkmenistan.
Turkmenistan, yeah, the country.
Oh, okay. The only United Nations building I know of is in New York City. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, I'm not.
No, it's a unbelievable place, Jason. I believe if you just start researching a couple pictures on Google of Ashgabat, you will be blown away by the infrastructure, the symbolism, just all the shit going down there, and the fact that honestly nobody lives there. It is one of the most advanced looking places in this realm when it comes to cities, and they have a very low population.
Yeah.
So check it out.
Can we get in there?
It looks like a new world city.
Is there an airport? There's an airport.
You can book
there?
a flight there.
Oh, there is.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, ladies and gentlemen. Speaking of trips, next, if you're a fan of Ola and Self Mastery Quest, doing Let's Talk About Exiting the Matrix. She just had her event up in way the hell up in almost in the Arctic Circle in Norway. And we're planning on doing one next year. I don't know if I'm going to be part of it or just going there, but the summer, next 2024, the summer, and everybody here would be invited to that. You have to get up there and all stuff, but it's going to be all the way up, and it's with the Northern Lights. And listen, Ola, who's amazing, she says there's real leprechauns up there, man. That's what she says. And that's what I'm going for. I'm going to bring a box of Lucky Charms with me. And I'm going up to the northern part of Norway, and I'm going to go hand out Lucky Charms. That's what I'm going to do that because I feel like that's going to be a fun thing to do. So if you want to do something like that, that's, where you do that. But Jason, I'm totally down. Hey, Jason, what's up with Acapulco?
Yeah, I'm probably not going to do that. It's I was on board, but then Acapulco kind of got wiped out.
Hurricane, yeah.
Yeah, man, and they got a lot of stuff going on down there. And you know what? I'm not feeling it no more. The energy is gone.
Yeah, gotcha. Cool. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you have an area in the United States or the world for that matter, and if you're somebody who can put together an event, that's another thing. Like, I'm not that guy. I know Jason's not that guy, and Jordan, I know you're not. If you're an event planner, like if you do this kind of stuff, well, hey, we're reaching out to you. Send me an email, decodeyourreality@gmail.com. We need some help on that kind of stuff. And I do want to throw this at you guys, and we can kind of get this tailed down to the end here. And I wanted to throw this idea out, and someone had sparked this idea, a fellow decoder. She's like, man, it would be amazing to have like a digital super group, podcast meeting for a whole entire day. And I had thought about this. So anybody listening right now, if you're somebody who has something to say, maybe you want to be part of this, I would love to get maybe 10, 15, 20 speakers. We need people to put this thing together. I'm not the guy to put it together. I can help, but I think it would be really cool to have, me and Jordan and Jason and maybe Bro Sanchez, like some of these people and have a whole day where you come in and we can sell tickets and we can maybe give some money to charity, et cetera, et cetera. That'd be kind of cool. It's an idea I've been throwing out there. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I wanted to throw that out there. So if you're somebody who can put stuff like that together, man, if you have experience in marketing, digital marketing, I think it would be definitely something like a decoding event, et cetera, et cetera. And I want to bring in a lot of names, man. I want to get rid of this these people that, like I'd love to bring in some names that they just can't get past like, I got to be right and you're wrong kind of thing. I wish they'd drop that because they have a lot of value and they'd be able to come to the table and be a part of this grand event. I think it would be just so cool and so amazing. So just throwing that out there, man, just really being a big collab here. Guys, what do you got here? Let's tail this down. Anything else you want to add? So we've been going for a few hours now, so.
Yeah, I'm good, man. I had a great time tonight, man. It was good talking to Jordan again, too. I know we've both been real busy.
Yeah, man, it was great to reconnect with you. I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to doing this again, for sure. It's really amazing to connect with both of you, and I'm down. Just let me know whenever you're all planning on doing round 3.
Well, we're definitely going to be doing another podcast with us three. This has been better than the second one. A lot of fun. I really appreciate you guys' your minds and what you've shared, and all of you great people that have been here, man. You could have been anywhere tonight, but you came here, and I know that I'm sure I speak for Jason and Jordan. We really love you, and we really appreciate you, I'm just really grateful that everybody came and tuned in here tonight for this podcast. So, anything else to add, guys? You guys good to go? Otherwise, we can end this transmission. Say our see you laters.
Yeah, man, I'm all good. Everything's good, and I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity. And you really need to send me a file of these badass images you got here and try to give up your.
I'll send them to you
because I'm on top of it. And yeah. Other than that, I'm doing good, man. I'm about tired. I'm ready to go sleep. I'm sick. I gotta get me some herb tea in me to protect this throat. Cause I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'm probably going live about 2 days from now.
Well, I'll give you, you know what my cure-all is for whenever you get like that little cold, whatever, you go out and you buy some vitamin C, but not just any vitamin C. You get some liposomal vitamin C. The liquid kind is really good. And every hour you take 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams for an entire 24 hours. I know it's a lot. You may get a little diarrhea, but that, for me anyway, that knocks out whatever the hell's inside of your body.
I did hear that you can't OD on a vitamin C.
You can't. You'll get a little diarrhea maybe, but you can't OD on it. And then you got to get some sun, as much as you can, get that vitamin D. Because vitamin D, I've talked to all the top nutritionists in my field, and I'm saying, what's the most important vitamin? And that's vitamin D is the top dog. So we kind of been, like vitamin C, and no, it's vitamin D. And the sun is the proponent of vitamin D. So if you can get outside, I know it's wintertime for many people in the Tropic of Cancer, but if you can get out there and do that, that would be great. But yeah, and I'm a huge, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, and Jason, maybe watermelon juice, man. It's all I've been doing. I've been doing like 3 liters of just pure watermelon juice every day. Just putting it in a blender and blending it up. And man, it's been a game changer in my life. Game changer. So that's another thing that I love passing on to people. So Jordan, I know you're a fan of the watermelon juice.
Absolutely. Watermelons are dope.
Yeah. That's the fruit of Zeus too, by the way, because it's the striped fruit. So, all right. So ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap, man. I appreciate each and every one of you for coming in here, sending you all a ton of love for this transmission. And we're going to sign off. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you later.